Let's go. The world getting crazy, baby, chill. Don't medicate, just meditate. You waking up now, well, baby, you hella late. Educate, look at what's going on, let it resonate, accelerate. Find your inner hunger like you never ate. Agenda is to push the hate. Separate and segregate, don't celebrate quite yet. The storm is coming, cue for heaven's sake. Violence that they demonstrate, instigate and penetrate the values of our country. And our God is what they desecrate. My fighters ain't no featherweight, pulling out the seams of the fabric that they fabricate. They feed us lies, manipulate, intimidate through fear and force, forcing us to sit and wait till we come together, congregate, and then we liberate. Praying that you give me strength to find some love amongst the hate. Marching on the streets of blood till I see the golden gates. Troubadour, troubled souls, one of God's servants. Blades out, cut the grass till we see the serpents.
One day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
I know the truth is hard to swallow, just digest it. Suspected something's going on, chosen just neglected, deflected by some breaking news. Oh, we just accept it, expected just to fall in line and follow their perspective. Don't question their objectives, but I got a lot of questions. How these kids molested, but nobody's been arrested. Read it in the testament, these children are protected. So I'm fighting all these terrorists, both foreign and domestic. Refuse to be directed, lying not a sheep, only kneel to my God. So I'm dying on my feet. Silence when we speak, but there's violence in the street. I've been rolling with the punches, I can't take it on the cheap. Nah, drink from a glass half full, I'm optimistic. People are sadistic, so vicious and malicious. Praying for assistance to overcome opposition, or I'm gonna start resisting and then I'll pray for forgiveness.
Oh, one day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now. We need you now. Oh, we need you now. One day. I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
Welcome, everyone, to the Andy Says MD show. Third time's the charm. Sorry about that. I was hitting a whole bunch of buttons and ended the stream several times. I think I did. Anyway, we're here now. That's great. Thank you all for coming. We're going to have a watch party tonight. We have a special guest, Allie4Truth, on. And we're going to go through all of the Newell Post video series. There's a 5-part series, and depending on the questions that we have in the audience, you guys can just throw them into the chat. Then we will answer the questions accordingly. If it's something like super pertinent to get to, then we might stop the video or something like that and jump right into it, or we'll do it at the end of each video. If you guys have a bunch of questions or not, then we'll roll all the way through the 5 parts. So thanks all for coming, and say hello, Allie4Truth. Can anybody hear Allie? I can't hear it right now. Is it muted or something? Let me check my phone. My Zoom is muted. There it is. I hear you. Oh, I lost you. You there, Allie? Hey, there she is. Welcome. Hold on. It's nice to see you too. I think Brian's speakers are on in the back. Maybe it's coming through your. Yeah, this thing. Is everybody else hearing double? Let's see in the chat. Is there any feedback, or are you hearing everybody say stuff twice? I'm having tons of technical difficulties. I'm sorry about this, guy. Let's see. Unmute my Zoom. Well, I'm not sure if I can. Yeah, I mean I can, but does that make it better?
I can actually hear you.
Okay.
All right, take 2. Hey,
Yeah.
Hello, Andy.
This is exactly what we thought it would be. This is the total, like, raw. I don't do this that often, and roll with the punches, try to figure it out. So
We are roll with the keeps, and thanks everybody for being here. And Andy, I want to thank you for putting this whole thing together. And I want to also thank Lyndon and Brian for being mods here.
all right, hold on. Everybody's saying they can't hear Allie now. I think it's because I unmuted on Zoom. Oh, this got kind of complicated, I guess. All right, so yeah, Brian's trying to fix it. So, I think people can hear me, but not you. So I muted myself on the Zoom again. And here, try talking now, Allie, see if people can hear you. Or, okay, maybe you're muted. That's okay, we got time. We can figure this out. Guys, we're going to go through the whole collection of the Newell Post videos. I'm sure this watch party is going to open it up and probably put some call to action, like where we can get more information to finish these stories out. And as your questions roll in, all right, let's see. Then we can, facilitate. If we can answer a question, we'll do the best we can. If not, that's a reason we got to get on it and dig some more and fill in the blanks. Because, if you have watched the videos, especially the first one, who was the other person in that raid that was not found guilty of anything, just walk free? So, are you back, Allie? Did I hear you? All right. So, all right. Now, yeah, my Zoom is muted still. So, all right. Okay. My Zoom is unmuted. Can you hear me on that? Hello.
I think so. Can everybody hear me?
It sounds like it. I can hear you. Can everyone hear Allie?
We're super smooth. Just rolling with it.
This is great. Yeah, I like it. We could just talk and then everybody can listen to it later. I know. Still no Allie. Lyndon's saying no Allie. I don't know.
Allie? More Allie.
All right, then maybe I can do something on my end.
It shows that the microphone is working on Zoom.
All right, let me do an audio input capture. Maybe that'll do it. Yeah, we couldn't we tried to practice everything we could before while I was trying to set it up, but all right, let's see. Well, I'm here. You can't hear me? Yeah. Yeah. I can hear you, but all right, let's see if this works by the same. Okay, let's try another one. All right. Yes. All right, so that's not working either. Okay. Me too. All right. Yeah.
Please.
Let's see about audio output. No, that's not going to help. Properties. Sorry, guys. Trying to figure it out. You can hear my volume okay, but just not Allie's. Is that correct? It's weird because I can hear her in my headphones like clear as a bell.
Mm-mm.
Doesn't show me.
Now I do. Hello.
Can anyone hear that? Can you hear?
Come
Allie?
come on, jackpot. This is it. I feel it. Rolling with it. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, no, they still can't hear you. They hear me fine, not you.
Okay.
All right.
No, they can't hear me, but Andy can, and I can hear him. Let's
All
just
right,
have a chit
well,
chat. Andy. Okay.
We'll just do this the way I do it with John. You want to just call me, and then I'll set up my tripod next to the microphone.
Sound good, Bri?
I know they'll hear it then.
Brian, are you close, or he wants to just set up his he just wants to call and do it that way? Would that be easier?
I don't know. They said it's working.
Oh, you guys can hear?
Oh, you can hear Allie now. All right, great. All right, damn.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you,
Okay.
Brian, for fixing something because I am like totally not good at it.
Me
So,
either. Well, wait a second. Hi, you guys. I don't know what you heard or didn't hear, but all I want to say is thank you for being here. And I'm so sorry. We really did kind of run through it, but we blew it.
yeah, now we know what to do for next time. you
We
know?
know what to not do. Hi, Andy.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to
Thank
the
you.
Andy Says MD show, everybody. This is Allie4Truth, and she's
Hey.
really here this time. And we're going to go through the Newell Post series of videos, as I said before, but nobody could hear Allie. If you guys have any questions, we'll just run through it and take questions at the end of each section. And hopefully this goes off without a hitch.
Oh, like it has been doing so far, huh?
Yes.
Knock on wood. But that's rolling with it. That's what that is. And I don't know if anybody heard this from before, but we just both want to thank Lyndon and Brian for being mods on this at kind of last minute. And we're just winging it, rolling with it. So thanks for being here. And we can't wait to answer your questions.
Yeah.
And thanks for putting this together, Andy. This is really important. And it has to do a lot with what's going on with John, and we're going to connect some dots and all that fun stuff. So, yay.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we get started on it, I want to say this is going to be a pretty good segue into Tuesday's show, but we'll talk about that later. So, without further ado, let's get to watching. Grab your coffee cups or beer. I don't know, 7:30. It's okay to crack a beer now. All right, here we go, guys.
I look
As
terrible.
the insanity
I
happening
really
around
should have
us
rethought
seems to
that.
pick up
Okay.
speed on the
That
daily,
makeup job.
it can be difficult sometimes to
Okay.
focus on one crime at a time, to concentrate on any single news story.
Can't hear that.
There's an oxymoron. Is it news or a story? For example, I am in the midst of writing part 2 of the January 6th special. And see, I was careful not to use the
do
phrase in the middle
subtitles.
of, because that would
Just a
imply that I'm halfway done. It's just a lot of information. It's a big old
I can,
bloated
yes.
boatload of connections and a crap ton of work, honestly. So I'm in the midst. And in the midst of my digging up the bones for part 2, this new story was brought to my attention. Nobody I've spoken with has even heard of this incident having taken place. And likewise, and like me, no one had ever heard of this judge, air quotes, before this news of his suicide, air quotes, broke. And there's a reason for that. The story's being buried by bureaucrats like high-level radioactive waste. And there's a reason for that too. And that's where we're going today.
Oh, okay.
Jonathan Gray Newell, age 50, served as state's attorney from 2003 until
Well,
he was
that's going to be
appointed as a
super
judge
weird,
to
a
the only
one-sided
circuit
conversation
court
between
in
the two
Caroline
of us.
County,
No,
Maryland,
that would
in
probably send
2016.
people straight
Before
to therapy,
that, he
so.
was top
I'll
prosecutor
mute
in a
myself. How
rural
about
Western
me?
Shore community. He was a
Okay.
member of the Drug and Alcohol Abuse Council, Handgun Roster Board, and chair of the Narcotics Task Force Advisory Board. He was also a member of Maryland State Attorneys Association, as well as Ridgely Lions Club and Caroline County's 4-H Club. According to WBALTV.com, federal prosecutors were sent to arrest Judge Newell at his home, one of his homes, for the sexual exploitation of minors on September 9. The criminal complaint states Newell set up a camera at his cabin where he often stayed with underage children.
sorry.
A
Yes,
young
Andy's
boy
talking to
found
me
this
right now.
camera in the bathroom, pointing straight at the shower. Newell denied having put it there, but digital devices found in his truck, in his office, and even on his boat contained videos of him setting up this same camera in this same bathroom. There were also several videos of juvenile boys showering. When the judge showed the camera to the investigators, there was no SD card inside. Why? Because it was inside him. He ate it. He literally ate it, put it in his mouth, chewed it up, swallowed it. So the next day, they took him to a hospital for a CT scan, and a metallic foreign object was found in his bowel area. A very crappy development for His Honor indeed. We are told that the criminal case against Judge Newell has been opened to the public. So, being all investigaty and stuff, I looked up case number 1:21-MJ-02533-JMC. Do you see it? This is a criminal case of sexual exploitation of a child involving the judge, all right, but it's from 7 years ago. It's from 2014. This judge had a history. It wasn't some big secret being kept from the authorities. In fact, I'm going to share some snippets of a couple of dirty deep state demons singing this guy's praises years before he was charged with his crimes against children. Proof of how they conspire and work together and cover for each other. The feds had already raided his house like a month and a half before. They already had what they needed. They had it way before that, as a matter of fact, and I'll show you that too. Oh, and the entire time these investigators had been investigating this effery, Judge Newell was on paid leave. That paid leave was extended to the end of this month when these investigators found there was just too much evidence to sift through to come to a hasty conclusion. Shocker. Not 2 months later, another federal criminal complaint is filed against Judge Newell for child P, and he offs himself the next day? Something is amiss here. It's also extremely fishy that a dude who allegedly makes $172,000 a year can afford this house, a cabin, a boat, payments to the ex-wife who divorced him last year, wonder why, and who even knows what else. This is how they roll. And they all cover for each other. Case in point, look what vermin was championing this perv way back in the day, years before he was charged with these atrocities against minors. Yup, Baltimore's own Rod the Bod Rosenstein. Roro. He speaks fondly here of Judge Newell's integrity and sound legal mind. Here are a couple of articles. One is from 2010 and the other from 2014, where these two men from the same rural area where Newell resided were sentenced to 40 years each for counts of producing and or receiving CP. And you'll see highlighted in yellow that in each case, both Rod and Judge Newell announced these guilty pleas. And talk about mockery. Check out this quote from Judge Perv himself. The governor and now the citizens have given me the power to dispense justice. And he includes the power to terminate parental rights. Why? This power-granting governor to whom Newell was referring was this clown, Harry Logan, Larry Hogan, scumbag. Should we talk about the conflicting testimonies of the so-called authorities' version of what went down versus the neighbor's account? Was there just the one shot that the judge allegedly inflicted upon himself moments before the feds fell upon him? Or were there 2 shots? 3? Flashbangs, how many, if any? Each description of what happened was different, but not as different as this. I was going through my research, just double-checking sources, and I'd cropped this headline from the ChesapeakeToday.com earlier in the week. And when I found it, I noticed immediately that the date was August 2, 2021, more than a month before the event actually occurred. Weird enough, but when I returned to the page, I noticed that the date had not changed, but the headline had. Look at this. They changed it from Circuit Court Judge Jonathan Newell was surrounded by cops and took his own life. So even that's a different version. And look, it's dated August 2, 2021, weeks before it even happened. So I go to look the next day and it's changed to this. Judge Newell's curious summer vacation ends on September 3, 2021, says Maryland courts. It's a good thing I took that screenshot They're trying to kill this story. Here we're told that Newell's alleged suicide happened on September 10th, just one day after the complaint was filed by FBI Special Agent Rachel S. Korn. Now, why does that name sound so familiar? Because she's the same agent who filed the criminal complaint in 2014. How did Newell not only get off scot-free, but go on to be appointed judge? Why didn't he get the 40 years the men he helped Rosenstein put away get? How was he able to personally handle hundreds of child abuse and sexual offenses? Why is the same FBI agent bringing the same charge 7 years later? Here you can see how some of the videos they found dated back to the time of the first criminal complaint in 2014. They all knew, including the disgusting governor who appointed him, who was quoted as saying it was his honor to appoint Newell, since throughout his legal career he had exhibited integrity, intelligence, and a strong commitment to justice. So what really happened here? Could it be possible that among the judge's tapes, it was discovered he was harboring an insurance policy? Along the lines of Hunter's laptop? Did this judge have records of dirty deals, payoffs, and worse? We know what they do to those who rat them out. The judge's time was up. He was busted. Was he ready to expose other politicians? Did he know too much? He'd certainly made plenty of important friends during the course of his illustrious career, close friends, both in Maryland and Delaware. And Judge Newell lived very near that border, by the way. Now, who else do we know like that? What other judge? Maybe one who owned this house in Lewis, Delaware, even though he lives and works in D.C.? Maybe one who once called in a favor to his compadre in Caroline County when his piece of crap son was in trouble after being busted in the Operation Broken Heart sting? One who speaks out publicly against the evils he commits privately? Perhaps one who allegedly retired, but who still lords it over the courtroom and over people he threw in jail because of the events of January 6th who shouldn't be there? So many questions. Nobody's talking about this. They are trying to quash it, not because it's not volatile enough on its own. It so is. But because if my theory is right, and this judge did have the goods on these muckety-mucks, boom, there goes their January 6th narrative. And they know if the truth gets out about what really happened that day, and who was really involved, and how.
There goes the planet.
Stay tuned for my next article, part 2 of the January 6th special, where I plan to tie up some loose ends and dive deeper into the truth of what happened. You can find all my articles on johnheretohelp.info, #1 fan site, and you will also find daily updates on the clock by the incredibly gifted and talented Philly Q, as well as some outstanding work product from our friend Captain Lyndon Leaders. He's been cranking out some amazing stuff, including the reading of John's deposition to the office of Mr. Linwood. He's making music over there, some sick beats. Please do go check it out, johnheretohelp.info. And you can also post a prayer for John or just say, hey. We've got some strong bloggers too, and also a place to donate to John's campaign to represent Maryland in the Senate in 2022. Win big, vote big. You can also donate on his McGreevy for Senate website, and I will link everything below. Okay, guys, that's it. Just keep fighting the good fight. Finish the race. And keep the faith.
Unmute. Hey. Smooth like butter, like a big stick of butter. Somebody asked a question that Lyndon fielded, and it's actually a really good one. Can everybody hear me okay? Excellent.
See now.
It's an adventure. It's an adventure. We're good. Okay. So the question is, why did the FBI serve the warrant, and were they in charge? Were the FBI in charge? And is that unusual? And this is actually a 3-part question. Did they release after action report the police departments do? So that I do know, and I feel like I covered that in the video, where initially the state police were in charge of the investigation of the murder, suicide, whatever, the death. And then they turned it over to the FBI. And it was Joe Riley, the state's attorney, who made that decision and said that he had a conflict of interest, total air quotes, call me air quotes, Allie. And so then he turned it over to the FBI, and of course, they quashed it. So, and then they told the story and said, oh, blah, blah, nothing to see here. So.
Yeah, and I think an addendum to your answer there, saying the FBI quashed it, is like, this is a closed case. They are not investigating anything else regarding this case. It's not likely that they will reopen this case.
Correct. And Joe Riley himself said that in his own words. He said the FBI never answers whether they're doing an investigation or not, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Well, so I guess that's a point to call to action. There is that if we had enough people, we had enough information, people digging on this to find out more of those details, then we could possibly open the investigation back up. That's a kind of a long shot, but if we try to get more details about this, everybody's comfortable with the term, the PIA now, the Public Information Act. If we're asking questions from our state law enforcement that was on the scene or the scenes of both raids, at his house and at the lodge, then we might be able to get some more clarity to that. And there are ways to do that. We'll go over that in a little bit. Was there any other questions? Newell is dead. Who else is involved? Asked the FBI. Well, yeah, that would be kind of the same thing, filing a FOIA. So I guess we can go in detail about that right now, just to move along with the same question. Is there somebody else on the scene that walked free, right? So we have to send these PIAs or these FOIAs out to request the information on how we can attain it.
Yes, and not to give away the punchline or anything, but the whole point, and it was a surprise to me, actually, in a lot of ways, because just as things unfolded, sorry, I'm getting
Cool.
So I'm sorry, I forgot, what was the question? Sorry.
Who do we, or who else is involved? Who do we ask? The FBI.
Well, definitely this is the point. There's one person connected to all of this, and this is the reason that I try to gather information and lay it out in such a way where the questions I ask should lead to other questions being asked. And the answer is blaringly obvious. If you really look at it, I mean, it's narrowed down to a couple few people who it could be, this unnamed person who joined the judge in his chambers that night. And nobody's talking about children who are affected by it. That's why I do what I do, for them, and nobody's sticking up for them. And it's all a bunch of, committees and whatever, all these people who are actually doing this stuff have, committees and whatever, like to help these victims, and they're not being helped. It's all being covered up. So that's what we're trying to expose. And that's the whole question. That's the main point, that it turns out, who is this person whose identity is being protected, this other person who was at the lodge that night. It means everything. And there were 10 other members, not just one. Who were these people? Why is it being hidden? We need to demand answers. We really do.
Yeah, whether it's a civilian, a law enforcement officer, local or federal, or innocent bystander, all the victims. I mean, there's answers to this, and we can ask for them. Not to say that they're going to give them to us, but if we send PIAs out to the sheriff's department, because they're local law enforcement there. We know Maryland State Police were on the scene, so we send a PIA to them, their state agency. And for the FBI, that would be a FOIA. So we have to model our requests and be very strategic with the language that we're asking for this information to find out who else is there.
Smart. And that's the way to do it, is to use their own language against them, their own legal language, and their empty promises. And there's a question in here that I think is great. What was on the memory card he swallowed?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. Just the fact that he swallowed it tells you whether they recover the information or not. It had to have been, that's what ended him.
Yeah.
It
was something very important, and the people that we would ask for that are the ones who seized it. And
they're the ones who had the most to cover up, in my estimation. And I feel like everybody would agree with me. It's like that was his insurance policy, was that SD card.
Yeah.
Because he's got, he had other things were recovered. Tons of evidence was recovered from even his boat and his cabin and his house, and in weird places, his office. You know how hard it is to get into a judge's office? Yeah. It's not an easy thing to do, but they recovered a ton of evidence. But whatever was on there was the thing that he was like, nope, this is it. This is what I need to get rid of. So I feel like a lot of important people, in particular, one important person, would have been implicated had he not chowed down on that little, he got his iron for the day, so that's good. And some other news developed, so.
He got his vitamins, U, S, and B.
That's very nice, Andy. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should just roll into the second video if there's no other questions at the moment. I'm looking back up through the chat.
I want to say one thing, and this is definitely not to toot my own horn at all, because I was completely and utterly blown away when this happened. But Mr. Linwood thought that this first video was important enough to pay attention to that he put it on his Telegram. And then Tori reposted it. So again, not about me. All I want to do is drag the truth out into the light, however I do it. And it's up to all of us to come together and make that happen in our own way, use our own gifts to do that. So it's gotten 11,000 views. People are paying attention. This is an important story that nobody is paying enough attention to. And because a certain Maryland governor is running for Senate, allegedly. We'll see. It's important to get this out now, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get into the second video, just to add on to what you were saying again, it wasn't just one person. It's 10 people that were there that are not identified publicly. So what does that tell you? That tells you that there are more victims that they are seeking. or have sought in the meantime while they have not been either tried, charged, or outed for this in public. So this is imperative that we find out the answers to these questions, because people are getting hurt every day. It's a good possibility that this is still ongoing and maybe even in the same location. So
Yeah, yes, right. There are many layers to it. And that was the thing that was the most interesting to me, where, it's just like this little news story and, to that end, I see Lynn just asked me, how did you get onto the story? I will just say, I don't reveal my sources, but I will call this person my angel anon. Wink, wink. It's somebody who is in the know, and kind of it just flew it over to me. I didn't know anything about this, but it turns out that it was just a little nugget to a gold mine. So that's all I can say about that.
I'm going to go get my squirrel.
No, don't do that, Andy. I seriously, this will be over. Just kidding. No squirrels allowed. That's a whole other subject. No
All right,
Sammy
yeah.
squirrels allowed.
Yeah, I'll save that for a later time. But
Please do. Much later.
All right, so hopefully we don't have any more boo-boos next time. And like, it was my fault when I started back on this and my mic was muted, but your mic wasn't muted when we went to the second video, so people could hear you over that. So
Right. So I feel like the important message to remember is that it wasn't my fault. It was not blaming him. I'm just saying it was 100% Andy's fault.
right.
That's all.
And Brian's.
And Brian's.
Yeah.
But not mine is the important point. So
Okay, so mute
yeah,
your
no
microphone.
squirrel in, no squirrels, no squirrels, no squirrels, no squirrels.
Mute your microphone, and then we will move
Okay.
on, and I'll mute mine.
Sounds good.
All right, let's go, guys.
In my last video, I opened with a musing on how difficult it can be for us, imperfect humans that we are with our busy lives, to really pay attention to important news stories when they break. It's overwhelming, for sure, when we're constantly barraged with innumerable reports of these unimaginable crimes, and not to mention the spin factor, or sometimes just outright cover-up. But more and more layers are being peeled back, and more truth is being exposed about our shadow government, our crooked courts, our janked up judicial system, and the web of miscreants who've monopolized that system for generations, for their own nefarious purposes, including the subject of my previous video, this guy. I saw this posted on Tori's Telegram. I love this. God is in control, but he doesn't expect you to lean on a shovel and pray for a hole. It's also said if you fall asleep praying for God to move a mountain, you should be prepared to wake up next to a shovel. I can dig that. And I have. To say nobody knew Judge Newell was a disgusting pervert is either covering for him or just living in flat-out denial. The town of Henderson, Maryland, where he was under house arrest at his residence when the FBI killed himself, has a population of 139. Well, 138 now. A town that small could never keep a secret that big. Same with Fishing Creek, where the cabin the judge shared with 10 other members was raided in July. Fishing Creek, population 156. 5. In any town that small, if you don't know what you're doing, somebody else does. Newell's neighbor, Kimberly Madison Keith, lived close enough to take this picture of the raid on his house, and close enough to hear a loud bang followed by 2 shots. She also had this to say about her neighbor. Rumors about the ongoing investigation were very well known around here. She found it odd that all he ever posted on Facebook was about boys, but nobody knew. According to the Baltimore Sun, before the judge's Facebook page was deactivated following the police raid, a series of posts about mentoring boys included pictures from the campaign trail, the hunting cabin, and wrestling matches. Here's one of his posts. He says, "Over the last 2 decades, I've helped raise a couple dozen kids, and their parents have helped raise my 2 boys, hauling sweaty kids back from ball fields and bass ponds, patching up skinned knees and pulling ticks out of armpits, refereeing pickup games and cranking out stacks of pancakes. They turned out to be some pretty decent human beings." And here's another one, very disturbing, about his 13-year-old neighbor. "Ordinarily, to cheer him up, I would have teased him, gave him a pat on the shoulder, mussed up his sweaty hair, maybe even sent him on his way with a little swat on the butt. I think boys especially need physical contact. Picking, poking, plucking. It's part of how they communicate with one another and show affection, even if it occasionally leads to a fight." But nobody knew. As recorded in a September 14 Sun article, the parents of the boy who found the camera in the bathroom of the cabin sat him down before he went on his first hunting trip with Judge Newell. His mother warned him about the judge, to be, quote, "aware of what to look for, to know what is acceptable versus unacceptable," end quote. Then the article says they came up with a safe word. I challenge anyone to find a definition of safe word that does not involve. The tamest description I could find was Oxford's "a word serving as a prearranged and unambiguous symbol to end an activity, such as between a dominant and submissive sexual couple." The boy's father is quoted as saying, "I blame myself a little bit for letting him go in hindsight, but if you can't trust your kid with a judge, who can you trust?" But nobody knew. This is Joe Riley. Joe took over as state's attorney for Caroline County, Maryland in 2019 after Hogan moved Newell up to his judgeship. The state's attorney Newell took over for in 2003 was this guy, Robert John Greenleaf. Greenleaf was busted using the court's computers to solicit sex from minors, 5 counts, and he gets probation. Who brought the criminal charges? Judge Jonathan Newell. He did disbar Greenleaf. Big whoop, he was close to retirement anyway. It took 3 years to drag that case out. And I'm sure he was on paid leave too, and is now living it up on his pension. Newell didn't even require him to register as a sex offender. What a coincidence that Greenleaf's second home is on Wolf Road in the tiny town of Henderson, where Newell lived. They were neighbors. And here's what the homes on that road go for, just FYI. A $500,000 second home. Don't laugh, it's paid for. By us. Hogan also appointed Matthew Palmer as Deputy Legislative Officer and COO of the Department of Commerce. This guy was the worst of the worst. I'm not going to go into detail, but he ended up getting only 8 years for possessing, receiving, and distributing over 1,000 images and videos of CP. Just 4 months before the raid on Judge Newell's cabin, acting United States Attorney for the District of Maryland, Jonathan Lenzner, put out this statement about this sick predator. "The exploitation of children is a serious threat and problem that has grown over the course of the pandemic. Individuals like Palmer who trade and possess this illegal material online are essentially facilitating an underground criminal market. This case should serve as a reminder that law enforcement will pursue anyone who endangers children and that no one is above the law." 6 months later, Lenzner had this to say about Judge Newell. Back to Joe. Hogan appointed Joe to the Board of Victim Services. He also serves as the chair for the Maryland States Attorneys Association Legislative Committee, where he fights for victims' rights. He's won awards for prosecution involving human trafficking, and his office has been recognized for excellence by the U.S. Attorney for the District of Maryland, who we know as Jonathan Lenzner. Riley recused himself from the case, citing a conflict of interest and allowing the FBI to completely take over the investigation. Why'd you do it, Joe? I'm interested to know what the conflict is and why it seems the members of this members-only club get free passes and have their stories buried. It would also be good to know why you won't answer a simple question posed by Heather Joy on your Facebook page. Are the other adult members of the lodge being investigated? Joseph Riley. The FBI will never comment on whether a person is or isn't being investigated. The Russian Revolution was a revolution that occurred in Russia. Come on, Joe. Newell was all up in that court, picking and choosing cases to personally handle involving these abused children. He even inserted himself in the county's chapter of CASA, court-appointed special advocates. In yellow, we read, CASA of Caroline, Inc. will advocate for the best interest of all abused and neglected children who are in the Caroline County court system through no fault of their own. As empowered by the Circuit Court of Caroline County, volunteer advocates will be trained to make assessments and recommendations to the court on behalf of these children. And look who empowered them by swearing them in. Judge Jonathan Newell. Let's talk about those club members and about those clubs. One of the members was there the night the cabin was raided, and the judge horked back the incriminating SD card. The Dorchester Star says another adult and 4 minor boys also stayed at the cabin that night, but that man has not been identified. Why not? In the criminal complaint by Rachel Scorn, oops, Rachel S. Korn, the judge states that he and another adult lodge member had invited 6 minor boys to spend the night with them that night. Newell advised that the cabin had 10 members who came and went, and that no log was kept of the people who accessed the cabin. Nobody cares about your log. Who are these 10 members? How hard is it to find that out in a community of 150 people? The 15% who have exclusive membership to this very off-brand club. The lodge didn't even require membership until 1996. Let's talk about that and other weird, wild things about clubs and memberships in and around Fishing Creek and Church Creek and Hoopers Island, Maryland. Fishing Creek in Dorchester County, Maryland is listed as an unincorporated community. That means it's a region not governed by a local municipal corporation. It's a settlement. From all I've dug up on Fishing Creek, it seems like a dream vacation spot for a very exclusive, very wealthy, very filthy little group of these political elitist scumbags who really get off on the idea of having no official town government in place and nobody to be accountable to and all the privacy they could ever want. Till now. Wikipedia tells us Fishing Creek is located on a narrow island served mainly by Hoopers Island Road. It has a restaurant called Old Salty's and a post office and a general store. It also has a crabbing business that relies on seasonal workers. Remember that. The village is on the upper island of the 3-island chain known as Hoopers Island, and it's about 15 miles south of the Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge and 24 miles south of Cambridge. And then Hoopersville on Middle Hoopers Island is 6 miles to the south. There's an inordinate amount of hunting and fishing clubs in the area, considering the entirety of Hooper's 3 islands takes up only 20 miles in area, and Fishing Creek takes up only one of those miles. Of all the many hunting, fishing, outdoorsman clubs, many of which have eerily similar names and super sketchy incorporation details, we'll just focus on 2. Blackwater Hunt Club and Golden Hills Gun Club. But first this. The raid just over 2 months ago on the cabin Judge Newell shared with these 10 other members of this club was hardly the first raid on Fishing Creek. Way back in March of 1999, the Washington Post reported that 65 federal state law enforcement agents, backed by a helicopter hovering overhead, descended at dawn on Hoopers Island and yanked several shoremen out of their beds to make arrests and issue citations. This bust followed a 4-year undercover investigation of hundreds of violations of state and federal game laws. Really? 65 agents and a helicopter to arrest 6 men in Site 14? What was really going on there? In August, just 1 month after the cabin raid and 1 month before the house arrest raid, there was another raid on Fishing Creek. This time it was a drug raid. 1.25 kilos of meth, and the address leads us to Hooper's Island Oyster Company and its seasonal workers. There's so much more to the mystery of Fishing Creek that I have to do a part 3. I definitely never intended to make a trilogy out of this whole thing, but you won't believe the depths of what I've uncovered. Truth needs to be brought to light about a few of the residents of this tiny little unincorporated habitation, along with their connections to some big kahunas in other parts of Maryland and DC, and especially Delaware. Stay tuned. In the meantime, please do your own research into all I've laid out here. And if you haven't heard the interview Dr. John McGreevy did with Andy Says Maryland about the Newell Post vid, you really should, and I'll link it. John lays out a ton of details about Judge Newell and so much more. I'll leave you with this proverb. Look straight ahead and fix your eyes on what lies before you. Mark out a straight path for your feet. Stay on the safe path. Don't get sidetracked. That's just good counsel. I'll meet back here for part 3.
I unmuted my microphone so everyone can hear me this time. All right, we got some questions out here. Let's see in the chat. And these parents, why? Starting with that. That's an excellent question. And I mean, I know it was kind of a question just in passing, but why are the parents still staying silent about that? I mean, they all know each other, right? There's 150-ish people down there.
149.
Yeah, 149. Exactly.
Whatever. That was so rude, but worth it. Yeah, it's an excellent question. A lot of this is, legal stuff that we can't get into, not to pull a Joe Riley, but that's just the truth. I mean, ultimately, we want to protect the identity of these kids, no matter how messed up their parents might be. And I believe, I could only half hear the video, but I believe it was this video, or maybe the first one, where I said that the parents were just like, yeah, that's fine. It's questionable, but if you can't trust a judge, go ahead. So it's a great question. Why? I guess for me, it's not my job to judge them. I don't get it. I'm not that kind of parent. But it is a good question, and it's one that only they can answer. But again, my heart and my concern is for these children, where protecting them is obviously the most important thing, like I said. But
well, yeah,
it's a small community. It's a small community. Everybody knows everybody, so there's that.
Yeah, in my opinion, I would say the parents are probably silent, or the children are probably silent and not telling their parents because somebody is being leveraged. Look, yes. I mean, somebody with authority, I won't say power, but somebody with authority that could make a lot of bad things happen for you or for your family, not you in particular, just generally, would say, okay, if you tell your parents about this, I'll make sure they go to jail. I'll make sure they're dead. Or if the parents are approached, is it, if you go to any authorities about this,
yes,
then we'll kill your kid, or we'll take your kid away, or we'll make your life a living hell. There's all kinds of ways to leverage. I mean, we know in talking with John so many times how Bridges put child porn on people's computers. That's all they got to do. They can access something remotely, put some child porn on it, and then come in with a warrant and say, you like kids.
Mm.
And then you go to jail, and then you're behind the eight ball. You're the one fighting from the back, trying to prove that you didn't do anything. And you didn't, but when the deck is stacked against you, I mean, it's a really tough thing to deal with. But
Right. And this is when we have to look at who's stacking the deck, who's the deck stacker, because, let's just get right down to it. There are only so many people in the position to have that, to wield that power over somebody who could make that threat land. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever. There are people who've been in that position before where their livelihood, their life is threatened, their parents, their dogs, their children, whatever it is, whatever means the most to them. These people will go for that jugular. That's what they do. So it's all about standing up against that. And we're about that.
Yeah, removing that self-preservation. I mean, my philosophy has changed over the last 2 years, but it's, nobody else is doing it, so I'm going to do it because I'm going to do what's right, no matter what happens to me. And I believe that, there's a better life waiting for me in heaven. So
there you go.
I'm going to wear the armor of God and try to get through every situation that's thrown at me. And I hope a lot of people, just read that section of the Bible.
I'm going to tell the truth, even if it kills me. That basically, okay, let me see.
Yeah.
The one mother I know when watch your shows. I was hoping. What is that? Okay. Well, all right. Sorry. I'm trying to take this all in, and it's huge because, there are people who are close to this situation who have privately reached out to me, and I'm just me over here. Like, people are like, who's your lawyer? And I'm like, Perry Mason. I don't know. Callista Flockhart. I don't have a lawyer. So, no, I do have a lawyer. You don't know me. I'm just saying, like, people think I'm somebody, and it's like, you know what? I'm not. I'm you. Do you know what I mean? I'm a
Right.
citizen. I'm a patriot. I'm somebody who will fight for the truth, even if it kills me. That is how I feel. And I stand, like you said, this is not of my own power. It's the armor of God that protects me. And so what can man do to me? That's how I feel.
Yeah.
And sometimes man can do a lot, and you're like, all right, I get it. So that's when the rubber hits the road with your faith.
Yeah. Someone had a question. Didn't someone from Hooper's Restaurants in OC die? Not that it's connected, but who knows? Do you know of any connection, or do you know of that death?
Is OC, I'm assuming that's Ocean City and not
Yes.
Orange County. Oh,
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm learning. I never knew anything about Maryland, and I'm learning a lot. And it's actually a beautiful state, and it can be beautiful again. We just got to get rid of these scumbags. So I honestly can't speak to that just because I don't know about it. I know the only thing, and I reported on this, it's I think in another a different video, maybe the fourth one, but the only thing I reported on and studied about Ocean City was that Billfish tournament with Glenn Frost and his connection to Fishing Creek and to Hooper's Island and to Joseph Riley and to the whole Eastern Shore and that whole shebang. So those connections are interesting and they're forthcoming. So not to give it away.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing I remember about Ocean City. I also remember that it's like there are very few people who live there year round, and those people are mostly wealthy. But during summertime, it's like Atlantic City, right? It's like a boardwalk.
Yeah.
It's like a big deal. And there's a lot of crime during those times, right? Like tourists.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Anywhere,
yeah.
but
yeah, I wouldn't say it's like a super violent place, but there's a lot of drunk people out and about, and the police are very on top of drunk driving and domestic disputes and things like that being on they have strict rules down there during the summer.
Okay,
But
well, that's definitely something that I will dig into because thank you. I don't know about that, but I will dig into it for sure. Because it could be connected.
yeah,
It's such a small community, and those are so interconnected. You know, even parts of Virginia and Delaware, like Delmarva, right? I didn't know
right.
any of this before, but they're all very connected. So that's a great question.
Yeah, I think the importance of this Q&A is to, get everybody's gears turning. We ask the questions, and, this is an interesting topic for anyone. So anyone could help dig on this. I'll just move to the next question, and we'll get to like contact information or something if, people can get a hold of you if they find something. But
See,
yeah, so next one is will you go back through the first part? I missed the date of the raid and where it
uh,
was. Well, there's two raids, right?
right. So which raid? So the first raid was on the cabin, and that took place when one of the minor boys that was there that night found the camera when he went to take a shower. So that was July 23rd, 2021. And then the raid on his house in Henderson was it was September 10th, 2021. So two different raids.
You
But
mean
the first one,
2020, right? Was that
no,
20? It was 20. Oh, yeah, it was
no,
21.
it
You're
just
right.
happened.
Yeah,
No, it just happened.
yeah,
Yeah, it just
okay,
happened like a few months ago. So,
yeah.
yep.
I think it's interesting to note, too, the obfuscation of the drug raid just before that, on the waterways. Because
Yeah,
this,
speaking of raids. Mm-hmm.
and, it all kind of ties together, doesn't it? I mean, you hear stories or read stories about it that it's kids, drugs, and guns.
Yeah.
These are the hot commodities, unfortunately, that are all trafficked. And, what's to say they're not going up and down in boats? Because sometimes people get caught in, by DOT in a truck or something like that. There's so many ways of doing this. And as long as everybody's paying attention, then we can thwart their attempts. We can uncover these things by digging on each individual topic, and we can unravel the truth because it all seems to be intertwined. Like you just had the
It is.
question before about Ocean City. Like, who's to say that isn't connected? And if you find out it is connected, then that leads you down a whole nother path that's could
Right.
uncover something huge there.
Yeah, and then add COVID and stir. I mean, the raid you talked about, the meth raid with that Borkaz, whatever his name was,
Yeah.
they didn't get those visas or whatever for the seasonal workers to come in. And so a lot of the seafood places shut down. And of course, Hogan funded all of it and whatever. He's got I was going to say something else. He's got a very special place in his heart for the
Mm-hmm.
people of the, it's not whatever. So, he I don't know, it's so much. So anyway, the places were shut down because they didn't have workers. Crabbing is a tough business. It's
Yes.
tough. I mean, have you ever seen somebody shuck a crab or whatever you call it? It's dirty work and it's horrible. And so that lots of places shut down. The whole waterway shut down. They were funded by Hogan in the background. Oops, maybe, perhaps, allegedly. But in the meantime, these giant places were empty. So it was a breeding ground for drop-offs of whatever. And you're 100% right. That is a waterway right there. That's the Chesapeake Bay. It's people think about Baltimore and the port and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's literally a waterway right there. And it's quiet and private and unincorporated. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and the follow-up question to that was, was this raid for the meth, was that on Hooper's Island, or like were they
Was
caught by DNR, or
it wasn't DNR, it was the FBI, and it was Hooper's Island. It was I believe it was a crabbing house on Hooper's Island, and I don't want to say the wrong name. but it was it was like a Hooper's Island Crab Company or whatever the crab company is right there in Fishing Creek. That's what I'm saying. Like this little tiny place,
Yeah.
and then there's also, like I said, the raid in 1999. Yeah, with all those people who got raided for different fishing and hunting ordinances that they blew or whatever. It's like, really, 4 years? It took you 4 years.
Yeah, that's the way it unfortunately seems to happen all the
Undercover.
time. Is we find
just
out
weird.
years later that something happened, and then it's too late to do anything about it. And besides help the victims of these crimes.
It's just a continuance is the point. Like
Yeah.
they have different ways of hiding it, but these same places do these same crimes in different ways. And they have different people come in and cover it up, and they're all connected. And we're sick of it. I mean, I'm about to break out in a we're not going to take it thing right now. Old school.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't see any other questions. You want to go right into the third part?
Do you, or do you think maybe, I don't know.
Well, I think for the sake of time, or do you have to go, or what do you want to do?
I mean, I feel like that would be up to the chat if they were into it. We could break it up. We're good. It's still early. I mean, we're good.
Okay.
Up to the chat, I would say.
Hey, you guys want to continue on the rest of the videos, or go on to video 3 now? They're pretty short in length, and if there's no questions, we can just roll through to the fifth one, and then answer a bunch of questions at the end. Is this style working for everyone? I think my chat is slow.
I don't know, but I just read that's why crab cakes are so expensive.
Yeah. Well, Lynn said keep going, so I think we'll keep going.
Yay, yeah. Lynn, I like you. Yep. Oh, I like you too, 1776 Dar. I like all of you. All right, cool. Let's go.
Yeah, again, thanks to everyone for being here.
Yes. Yay. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
All right, and I will be muting my microphone.
Yay. We've learned so much since we started.
We have. We're like producers now.
Shoot.
All right, here we go.
Read my eyes.
Sorry about the ad, guys. I'll skip them.
I can't see the ad.
Oh, yeah. Well, they can see it, and they can hear you, too. He's like,
oh, yeah. No, I could make so many comments. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Can I do it? Self-mute. Self-edit. That looks really cool, honey. I like that. Fiber optics, right?
What the hell is going on here? I screwed this up. Sorry. Is it down there? Technical difficulties. Oh, yeah, you can't do that. Shadow ban. Are they not in order? They're not in order. Okay, let's do this. And here we go. Sorry about that, guys.
Hey, guys. Thanks for all your support and encouragement through this overarching saga it's turned into about Judge Jonathan Gray Newell of Eastern Maryland. In this installment, we'll go over what I've discovered and uncovered about this judge's family. His ex-wife, a tortured artist and teacher who only became his ex-wife last year, and who, as the better half of a Republican, air quotes, for all those years, has a lot of splaining to do about some of her artifices. We'll get to know a bit about the judge's older brother, and more importantly about his father, who put down deep roots and deep state roots along the eastern seashore and set up shop in 1968, 3 years before Johnny Boy was even born. Permeated the place, rubbed all the right elbows, joined all the right clubs, and by right I mean wrong, with his New World Order, One Love bullshit more than 5 decades ago. The connections to Maryland politicians and more are very interesting. You won't even believe it. But first this. Ordinarily, I would not comment on one of my videos, but this was no ordinary comment. And the commenter was certainly no ordinary schmo. This gentleman is a very important attorney, not just some pedestrian plea peddler. He's a lawyer who happens to practice in teeny tiny Caroline County, where Judge Newell was the only circuit court judge. I'm going to block out his name and face. You're welcome. He knows who he is, and he is free to make as many comments as he wants. So my first video, and what is turning into this series on Newell, was so offensive to this guy that he just had to comment. And I saw that he even edited his remarks, so a lot of thought went into it. He starts out by letting me know how he was compelled to comment. Well, let's just read it. He says, "Okay, this is so dumb, I really must comment. He was not charged in 2014. He was charged this month for something that happened in 2014. I practice in Caroline County, and no one ever suggested he was a sex offender until the kid found the camera in July 2021. They got warrants and found video going back to 2014. Also, you can buy a lot of property in Caroline County, which is poor, with $174,000 a year. In addition, it is not unusual to have a several-month delay in charging CP cases, as it takes a while for the experts to comb through everything to build a case. I will give you this. The way that they tried to arrest him was unusual. Usually they do no-knock raids in these cases to prevent what happened here. It's like they were giving him a chance to kill himself. Or they did murder him. I don't know. Although murder seems unlikely. You should redo this video and focus on that, because 99% of what you are saying is wrong. P.S. Seems weird you put judge in air quotes. He was most certainly a judge." Okay, Mr. Know-it-all, big-time lawyer. This judge, see, I put air quotes around titles that are given and not deserved, sort of like Governor, air quotes, Hogan, who appointed Judge Perv and said of him, and I airlessly quote, "Judge Newell served the citizens of Caroline County with distinction as their state's attorney for 14 years. I was honored to appoint him in 2016, and I am happy to endorse Judge Newell today. I urged the citizens to confirm my choice in the 2018 election." End quote. We'll get back to Lair Bear later. You say the judge was being charged for something that happened in 2014. Wrong. The unsealed document describes under probable cause specifically the incident that occurred on July 23. That was the charge. They did find tapes that dated back to 2014, but the criminal complaint that was unsealed was for July 23, 2021. So I found it odd that it was dated 2014 right at the top. Unless it was backdated, which I'm sure as an attorney may be fraudulent, misleading, illegal, and even criminal. Next, you say nobody suggested he was a sex offender until the kid found the camera. Of course nobody talked about it. That's how controlled secrets work. Plenty of people knew, as I proved in my last video and will prove further in short order. You say Caroline County is poor, therefore no big whoop to buy up lots of property on the judge's $174K per year salary. The median income is almost $60,000. 9.4% of Caroline County residents live in poverty. That's less than 10% of the population. So you're wrong again. And I'm going to show you just how wrong with a real estate corner segment I'll be featuring. Being a local and all, I'm sure there's a pretty good chance you'll be familiar with certain buyers and sellers and proprietors of some of Caroline and some neighboring small counties' finest luxury real estate. Then you make excuses for why investigations into harming children and scarring them for life drag on for so long. Forensics can't be rushed, given, but what ends up happening is they take something that is painfully obvious to everyone from clear evidence and either stall it into oblivion or kill the story altogether, like they did when Newell was offed. That, says you, is the one thing I got right in that first video. You admitted it was unusual the FBI didn't do a no-knock raid, as is the norm, and that it was like they were giving him a chance to ice himself. Or did they murder him? Why would you, an experienced, savvy attorney, publicly ponder such a thing? Is it because you know the judge had an insurance policy on well-known politicians and others? You just told on yourself. What you didn't do is mention one word about this monster's victims. Who even knows how many? You end by advising me to redo the whole video, focusing solely on the 1% you say I got right. The fact that the FBI shot the judge in the face with a Dirty Harry style .44 Magnum in order to protect his puppet masters. I'm paraphrasing. You're not great at math. The 99% you say I got wrong was mostly referencing news that had already been reported. And you also suck at spelling, because even as dumb as I am, I know how to spell warrant correctly. Come on, man. It's not like it's onomatopoeia. You're a lawyer. The word warrant doesn't come across your desk every single day. But I'm dumb. No comment on the second video, I noticed. Not surprising you'd stick up for the judge when 70% of your practice is defending criminals and your legal philosophy is this: there is nothing wrong with pleading not guilty, even if you are actually guilty. You say many good people sometimes make bad decisions and that should not define their entire lives. It doesn't. They're slime. The problem is these bad decisions to hurt a child can tend to define that child's entire life. And that's enough of you. Let's move on to the judge's kinfolk. Here's a family photo of the judge with his former wife, the former judge with his former wife, and their boys at his swearing-in ceremony. These young men have been through quite enough. I'm not going to drag them into it like their father did. Here's just one example of many of how he used his sons to groom their friends. Allegedly. You might remember from the last video, scores of photos were found of the boys accompanying him all through his campaign run. This is the judge's ex-wife. Amanda Newell is a celebrated poet in her little artsy circle and beyond. She wrote a chapbook called Fractured Light, where these seemingly biographical poems appear, such as, "Because I am lonely, and you will not know my pain." Her work has appeared in such illustrious publications as Rhino, Rattle, Scoundrel Time, and Gargoyle. She's won awards and fellowships for her offbeat verse. And I was trying to find the least violent and disgusting poem, and ironically, it's this one, Butchering the Sika Deer. Some of her others, like Black Angus and Permanent Girl, give us quite a peek into Amanda's psyche. Those are doozies. I'm not about to read those. Some are just plain bizarre, but there's one she calls Late Sonogram. Here she writes that she took several of her students to the Stop the Ban's abortion rally in Annapolis. Yep, she's a teacher. Or she was. Actually, chairman of the English department at the Gunston School in Centerville. So this wife of a Republican judge takes her underage students to a pro-abortion rally for a field trip. The Gunston School is a very liberal, very transnational private prep school. In fact, you can see in this one paragraph description, the word global is used 5 times. And lots of other special words in that paragraph to let you know what this school is all about. As of 2019, Amanda also taught English at Frostburg State University, and she was the director of litigation for Holmes, Pittman, and Haraguchi, a Washington, D.C. area law firm specializing in government contracts. Wonder where she is now. The judge had one brother, 2 years older, Jeffrey D. Newell. He was a tough one to dig on, I'm here to tell you. Jeff is the Northeast Regional Manager at Dixon Valve and Coupling, based in Chestertown, Maryland. Or is it South Australia? Dixon Asia Pacific is a privately held company founded in 1996 with locations in Australia, Singapore, and China. Why is that on there? Weird. Any old who. So the judge's brother, Jeffrey D. Newell, is married to Margaret B. Newell. The B is for Bramble, and that's a big name with some big history in this particular little part of Maryland. In fact, her grandfather, David A. Bramble, was so important they named a road after him. According to the website, Bramble began his contracting business all the way back in the 30s, and it's since turned into one of the largest employers in the upper eastern shore area. They built most of the highway projects there. Route 404, found that file, in Caroline County, Route 50 in Queen Anne's County, the Easton Airport, on, and then they moved into Delaware. They boast an aggregate of 300 years personnel experience, so the Bramble family has been in that specific region for generations. Margaret's father, David Jr., also owns Tolchester Marina, one of tons of marinas in that area. More about that when we get to Real Estate Corner. So the judge's brother and sister-in-law are quite involved in all the community happity-haps. She works at a marina, and when he's not regionally and apparently internationally managing valves and couplers, DJ Jazzy Jeff doubles as a local MC. Here he is back in 2012 hosting the Chester River Catfish Invitational, which has since turned into a big tournament. Okay, make room for Daddy, James David Newell, Canadian educator, philosopher, and minister. Air quotes all round. He was born August 6, 1939 in Sydney, Nova Scotia. Dr. Newell goes by his middle name, David. And remember when I said he put down roots for his family there in Chestertown, where a river runs through it, in 1968? He taught philosophy at Washington College and was the chair of the Department of Philosophy for 15 years there. Washington College is a privately endowed liberal arts college in Chesterton. It's basically a grown-up version of that Gunston school. The same ideologies, just extra crispy. It's a tiny school. They have like between 1,000 and 1,500 students total, but they have a 120-acre campus. Dang, that's like 2 miles. Elite much? Dr. David is described as a man who has inspired many with his rare passion to bring the field of ethics to everyday life. He even taught ethics at West Point. No wonder his son turned out to be such an ethical judge. Dave is also said to have provided important ethical insights locally in the field of medicine while serving on the board of the Kent and Queen Anne's Hospital and the Heron Point Retirement Community. But the most righteously ethical thing of all was when in 2012, the Reverend Dr. Newell was appointed to serve as the full-time minister of Chestertown's Unitarian Universalist Church. Oh, look, there's Judge Johnny Boy. I would never cast aspersions on one's religious beliefs. Lucky for me, Unitarian Universalists don't have those. They call themselves a church, but there's no defined doctrine of God. Most don't believe in a supernatural supreme being, but in a spirit of life or a power within themselves. They're their own gods, the do-it-thou-wilt stuff. The UUA, in its own words, is comprised of Christians, Jews, humanists, agnostics, pagans, Buddhists, Taoists, Hindus, Muslims, all bound together not by dogma, but by shared values, social concerns, and common interests. What common interest would a Christian share with a pagan? Seriously. I urge you all to look further into this organization. They're so inclusive. If Lumpy Loveseat wanted to make a cheeseburger his wife, and trust me, he does, Dr. Newell would happily officiate that union. That'd be one short union. So at one point in his distinguished career, Mr. Dr. Reverend Judge's daddy also taught his ethics as the vice president of the Aspen Institute. Let's talk about that and connect some dots. Oh yeah, I should mention that this very exclusive college where Judge Newell's dad taught, Washington College, here's how exclusive it is and how local. Its alumni includes 2 governors of Maryland, 1 governor of Delaware, 4 United States senators, 7 House of Representative members, and 9 state senators. Weird how such exclusivity warrants an entire world of political influence. The Aspen Institute is an international nonprofit research organization and think tank headquartered in D.C., with campuses in Aspen, Colorado, its original home and namesake, and right at the Wye River in Newellsburg, Maryland, Chestertown. It has partner Aspen Institutes in Berlin, Rome, Madrid, Paris, Lyon, Tokyo, New Delhi, Prague, Bucharest, Mexico City, and Kiev. They have leadership initiatives in the U.S. and in Africa, India, and Central America. Did I say international? Intercontinental, okay? Globalists. Stay with me, guys. It's a humdinger. With his long history of universalist ideals, it's no surprise Dr. Newell's path led him to a leadership position at the Aspen Institute. The funding for this establishment comes mostly by foundations such as the Carnegie Corporation, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, the Gates Foundation, the Lumina Foundation, and the Ford Foundation. Bank of America, Capital One, Fannie Mae, J.P. Morgan Chase, Open Societies Foundation. They also receive sizable donations from undemocratic regimes in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. And here's a collage of just some of the great minds who come together to discuss their New World Order ideas. Here we see Pops Bush with Mags Thatcher in 1990 at the Institute's 40th anniversary soiree. Then a photo of Slick Willie in 1998, where he and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat signed a peace agreement between Israel and Palestine. After 9 days of tough negotiations at the secluded Wye River plantation, which is what it used to be and what they were still calling it in 1998, the Wye River Accord for Mideast Peace was signed. Of all the places in the world for such a momentous event, why there? Why? We know who those harpies are at the bottom. Moving on. Here are just a few more AI Aspen Institute dignitaries. Gates, Comey, this guy, and this guy. There's Bloomberg, racist schnook, a couple of Bidens, and this Stronzo throwing up doubles. These are just some of the more world-renowned lot. Now let's see if any Maryland politicians have been involved. Maya Rockymore Cummings, who runs Global Policy Solutions in D.C. and is the widow of late Maryland politician Elijah Cummings, was the recipient of the Henry Crown Fellowship Award, which is given by the Aspen Institute. Yo, Nance, looks like your 18-hour bra expired 3 weeks ago, but it's actually a perfect representation of you having no support, so... Hi, Chris Van Hollen. Hi, Roro. Hi, Boyd Rutherford, Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, who answers to the guy next to him, Governor Larry Hogan. I ask you, why would anyone take part in furthering the ideas and goals of this socialist globalist organization filled with and funded by known socialist globalists if they weren't a socialist globalist? Okay, I'm going to stop here with the promise to do part 4. I know, can you believe it? We'll wrap it all up in the next episode with more details about Hogan and his ties to Judge Newell and that little secret stretch of seaboard that's been kept a secret far too long. and Hogan's connections to other weirdos and weirdness. I'll leave you with this on the subject of weirdness. In my research, I came across this article from 2011 about a mental health agency director who hid a video camera in a bathroom. 19 criminal counts, and he was sentenced to 5 months home detention. Didn't spend a day in jail. His name? Joseph Newell. Remember Joe Riley, the state's attorney for Caroline County, who took over for Newell when Hogan appointed him judge? Scott Brown asked him on Facebook if Joseph Newell was related to Jonathan Newell. Riley gives his standard Duran was neither Duran nor Duran answer, but it did get me digging. It never did figure out if the two of them were related, but come on. Camera in the can. The more I dug, the more Newells I found. I mean, way too many Newells in way too concentrated a small area for them not to be connected somehow. And here's something really freaky. The guy who took over as president of Resources for the Future just days after Dr. Molly McCauley was brutally murdered? Richard Newell from Bethesda. Freakiest of all, the guy who became managing director of the Aspen Institute's Entrepreneurs Network last year is this guy, Kyle Newell. And as of April of this year, a Tess Newell became the events manager for the same network at Aspen as Kyle Newell. They're practically twins. Look at this. It's so trippy. What the? Can't make this stuff up. So the conclusion is forthcoming, part 4. And in it, we'll cover, as I said, more about Hogan and his connections and his little frequent visits to that island area, as well as some of the creeps he currently champions, as he did Newell and many other creepazoids in the past. Did you know Hogan's dad was a Maryland lawyer and congressman and gubernatorial candidate and FBI agent? Oy. Also, I will get to Real Estate Corner, as I've come to call it. The properties and owners of these properties are such an integral part of the web that's been woven. And there are some super sketchy LLCs in abundance, some very interesting natives of Fishing Creek and Hooper's Island, and even more evidence that connects Judge Newell to this network of dastardly chicanery. So stay tuned. As always, I encourage you to look into everything for yourselves. This is crazy stuff, and there's a lot more, and it can get overwhelming. Be strong in the Lord and remember his promise. Greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. Peace.
Okay, can everybody hear me again? Yes, I know you can. I can see my mixer. And I can hear Allie, so this is good. This is working better. We have
Hey,
another.
we getting it. We
What's
getting
up?
it.
So we have another special guest on the phone right now, Lyndon Leaders, because this is really his wheelhouse of, thank you, Allie, of talking about the PIAs and the FOIAs. So it's an answer to my question before, what was the Dorchester Sheriff's Office doing the days of the raid? Because they're the ones who have the authority. They got to sign off for feds to come into their county and conduct an investigation and then carry out the investigation and the case. So the authority has to the authority is the sheriff, and he has to relinquish that authority to the feds to say, yes, you can come in here and do this. So without further ado, say hi, Lyndon.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, Lyndon.
So Lyndon probably can't hear Allie, but he can hear me because I'm talking to him on the phone. And
Well, Lyndon can hear me in his heart.
yes, yes.
We're that tight.
You
He's
guys
like a
are
brother.
speaking in ESP right now.
Oh yeah, he's totally my bro. But anyway, I'll
But
just you guys go on ahead. This is awesome. Lyndon is just brilliant about this stuff with his experience and yeah. So
yeah, well, I mean, you want to do a brief synopsis of the background that you have in law enforcement to, uh, prove your credibility right away.
Yeah, I was an Austin police officer for 10 years. I was injured in the line of duty, so I went on to be a private investigator. But during my tenure there, I was a certified police instructor. I was a field training officer. Worked a high crime area, and eventually got put on a specialized unit. And yeah, I mean, nothing more special than all those other officers out there serving, but I am considered an expert in federal court. So
Yeah, and also a whistleblower. I mean, you guys go to johnheretohelp.info. You can see the transcript or the case for Lyndon's filing as well. So, given that you have the law enforcement experience and you have the knowledge behind it, in constructing a PIA or a FOIA, to who would we send all of these to? We touched on it earlier, but I think it's better coming from you.
yeah, and I mean, two things. First of all, like Tori's group is absolutely amazing. I am not an FOIA expert or a PIA expert, but I can give you some information I think may help. Just some ways to consider how the investigations go. So every one of those, is that three separate entities: the sheriff's department, state police, and then you have the FBI.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a federal warrant that was being served. So if those units were on scene that day, let's just take the state police, for example. State police they're going to have a dispatcher. And serving a high-risk warrant, you would have EMS and fire on standby. And that would be for the officers as well, to make sure everybody's safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a system that all of those police, fire, and EMS units use, and that's the computer-aided dispatch. We called it CAD here. They might have a different name for it. But there's going to be a computer-aided dispatch log where they talk to each other on their computers, so it's not necessarily the things that are going over the air, such as, Sheriff Andy arrived on scene at this exact time. He just hit a button on his computer that let everybody know he's there. You know what I mean? He didn't go on the radio. So some helpful things that you might want to ask for are the computer-aided dispatch logs, because it'll tell you every unit that was dispatched, a second-by-second synopsis, shots fired, the dispatcher's logging it in. Fire and EMS will also have logs of, CPR in progress, the exact times and unit numbers that we're doing that. And that is your tax dollars, and you have a right to know. And some other things. So you would want to request, just a suggestion, for a thorough investigation, you want to request, like the sheriff's department computer-aided dispatch logs, and that would tell you all the officers that were there. And it would tell you a second by second, from the start of the call to the finish, everybody that was there. That would assist you in requesting dash cam footage from certain units, if you wanted to, body cameras, quite a bit you could discover. And, fire trucks and EMS units have cameras on them as well. I don't know if they're required to save it as part of a critical incident, but you could ask.
Yeah, all the car numbers are absolutely important. We know all the people that were on the scene. As I mentioned earlier, it's civilians. I mean, there could be bystanders that were just walking down the street or driving by, and they stopped to look. They have to be. There has to be something that is documented with that. But I mean, especially with not necessarily the bystanders, but especially with the victims, the suspects, the people who walked free. I mean, there's got to be an end to this. And I think the very pointed questions that we bring up could produce these answers. And with your experience in trying to investigate these answers and get these answers from all the and your experience as law enforcement from all the people on site is going to be super helpful.
Agreed. And I
Well,
have to,
thank
I
you.
have to
But,
say,
it's
oh,
important to note nobody would be talking about this
nobody
if
can
it
hear
wasn't
me.
for Allie4Truth right now.
Oh,
And that the bigger question is why not? That was that an isolated victim? What was on that memory card that he swallowed?
Yeah.
I mean, did that lead to other investigations? Is it an ongoing investigation? Or, I think those are important questions to ask. Bigger question to ask is, Allie did some amazing work on these videos, amazing journalism.
Yes.
Why is she the only one talking about this with children involved?
yes.
Right.
This is an outcry. And again, that's something that Lyndon taught me. And I don't know if Lyndon can hear me or not.
Right now.
What's that? Oh, okay. So can anybody hear me?
No, we can hear you. I was
Okay.
just telling Lyndon that you were responding to him.
Okay. Well,
I'll
I
put it on mute
mean,
and listen.
okay. So Lyndon is very humble. I'm not going to make a big deal. He's very humble about what he can offer. But so this CAD, the computer aided dispatch logs, Lyndon, this is something I never knew about. This is why it's important to crowdsource information, I feel like, and why shows like this are important, where it doesn't matter how many of us, just that we have the common goal and common, heroes and people that actually can get stuff done. And so Lyndon, this CAD computer aided dispatch log stuff, who would we ask for? Because I mean, you're talking, there are times, and when you say that, of course, officers are present, and then you can know who those people are. But when you say everybody who is present, do you mean maybe we could uncover this mystery person who was invited for this sleepaway camp for that night? Or
he would have to unmute now to
okay.
say
Okay.
to respond. So
Okay.
now you heard that, right, Lyndon?
I'm listening.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, do we find the person or the persons involved in this?
The guests of the cabin, right? Like especially the main
Can you
guest
hear
that
me?
was there that night.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can Allie hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah. Do we?
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Trying to turn my audio off. It's much simpler than that. You can do it for that date and that address. The CAD logs associated with an incident at that address on that date. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can just go from there.
Okay.
And
I see you guys in the chat. I see you. And, it's really important to put question marks after everything. Good vibes 171. I dig what you're saying. Question marks are important, aren't they? Question mark.
yes.
So anyways.
Well, I think you had the question before, Allie, is like, who do we send them to? So
yeah. Yep.
The answer,
who, Lyndon?
Yeah.
Do we send it to the sheriff's department, or who do we? Because we like you said about Tori, they're kicking ass over there, and
Right.
Andy is kicking ass. Like, we're doing whatever we can, and some people want to do something and they don't know what. So, how could we do this? This is a new angle that I didn't know of, but I feel like it could be really effective. So, who do we send it to? This request.
I don't know if he heard that or not, but I'll answer it.
All right.
Yeah, who do we send it to? Lyndon, the three agencies that we just talked about, the FBI, which would be a FOIA, and asking them for their computer-aided dispatch logs. And this is just one of the questions that we're going to ask. We'll ask all three offices this: the Dorchester County Sheriff's Office, the Maryland
What's that guy's
State
name again, Andy? Let's say his name. Say his name.
Sheriff Phillips.
Phillips. Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, indeedly do. All right.
And yeah, the Maryland State Police as well. They would
Yes.
have to have all this documentation, like Lyndon said before, fire, EMS, persons that have to be on site, like especially for a raid, that people can get hurt. So
Yes.
all emergency systems, they ring the gong for this, and they come out to respond to the situation, no matter how it unfolds. So, what are some other pointed questions that we should be asking in these FOIAs and PIAs, Lyndon?
Well, I mean, if they did a seizure of evidence there, I know Allie pointed out the memory card that he swallowed.
Yeah.
What became of that? I mean, was that forensically analyzed? Did they take all the computers out of the house that day? If it's pretty typical for an investigation that involves child crimes. Wouldn't you take all the electronic devices, have a warrant for that if you were going over there and you had officers on scene and it was all secure? Wouldn't you seize all the electronic devices to further an investigation? You know what I mean?
That's an excellent question. And about that SD card, he did like chomp it down and hork it back. And again, for a reason, it was like he wanted, that was money. That was the thing right there. That was his Hunter Biden's laptop right there. So he chewed it up and tried to swallow it, but they found it in his colon or whatever when they did that CT scan. And so it's literally evidence. It's crappy evidence, literally. But do you know what I mean? It's still like it's evidence. It's developing evidence. Get it?
I get it. That was good. Well, here's a question from the chat for you, Lyndon. The fire and EMS, are they under the sheriff's jurisdiction or are they under a separate jurisdiction? Would we have to file one with the local fire department, or would we be able to obtain that information by Maryland State Police or the sheriff's office?
I think that would be separate. That would be with the fire units and EMS units. You'd be requesting them from them.
And should we also look at sending one to the 911 dispatch center? Because was there a call that happened?
That's good.
On this date? And the next question is really for Allie. Date and address. Can we throw that in the chat? Do you have that handy? And I can
date and address
of each of the raids.
Yes, I can get those. I can get both of those. I don't know about exact address because they're hiding that, but I have like pictures and definitely dates.
You can also Freedom of Information all activity related to that address and find out if there were, more.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as Newell's address, for one raid, I don't have the Fishing Creek address, but I have a picture of it. It'd be easy enough to get it. But the house arrest, where he met his end, I have that, and that's on my videos and everything else. And that house, as far as I know, he had other properties. That's in an upcoming video, the real estate corner video, or part of that. But he owned a few properties. And at the date of the last video, he had not sold that property. His wife took off or whatever and said, you can just keep the house. So as far as I know, the house is just still sitting there intact. But he did dump other properties that he owned, and one was worth like $400,000, like a couple months before this all happened. So the address of his house, where he shot himself or the FBI shot himself or whatever, that I have, and that date, I can drop that. But the Fishing Creek cabin, I don't have that, but the date of that was July 23.
Okay, so
2021.
I think the best way we can handle that is as I upload these videos to my YouTube, Rumble, and I can put in the comments. Once we figure out the address, we have the dates of the raids, because I mean these are obviously paramount when we're asking for information. So we can put that in there, and or I can do an update, just like a really 20-second video just to remind everybody of it. So yeah, from the county, Lynn's asking. Yes, from the county, it's Dorchester County. That's correct. And with that few of people in there, there's probably one, maybe two fire stations. So it's worth the extra, 60 cents or $1 for a stamp. What is it now?
It's not $1. It's like, yeah, I don't know. But so may I ask you this, Andy, as a Maryland, are you guys called Marylanders?
Yes.
Okay. So is, I feel like it's the same county. So Dorchester County is both a home. Is Henderson in Dorchester County or Caroline County? Dorchester?
Henderson, Maryland? I'm not familiar with the Eastern Shore that much.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it is
Because
Dorchester.
Fishing Creek is definitely Dorchester County, but I feel like his house in Henderson might be Caroline County. Not sure. Anybody know that?
Yeah, if anybody knows the answer to that, just put it in the chat. Yeah, I mean,
they're right next
you're
to each
supposed
other.
to, as an elected official, you're supposed to live in the county you're representing. So that would be another thing right there. But Hooper's Island, I know for a fact, is in Dorchester.
That I do know, but I just don't know about Henderson. I feel like Henderson is in Dorchester too, but I don't know for sure. I don't know.
I mean, and somebody could Google that real quick, say Henderson, Dorchester County, or Henderson, Caroline County, see which one comes up. To get answers for this.
So that we know who to get FOIAs from or whatever. It's really powerful. We mentioned Tories, people are going crazy in there, and groups are forming, and it's just, this is how we do it. How we do it.
Good Vibes had the question, was anybody taken to the hospital? Do you know about any damage that was done? Some personal injury to anyone? Was that any of your investigating where you came across any of that?
In what capacity do you mean?
Well, in the...
When he shot himself in the face, or when the cops did, or whatever?
Yeah, on either raid, I would assume that the question is asking, was anybody taken to the hospital? Is there nothing in the reports or the articles that you read?
No, I don't know what happened to the kids or whatever, but as far as, it wasn't a violent, none of the raids were violent. In fact, usually the FBI does no knock raids. This didn't happen. This was like all planned out, I feel like, or at least planned out enough where they gave him a chance to do the right thing or whatever, and he just made a decision. So
yeah,
just my opinion. I don't have any facts for that. I don't know. It's just my opinion, and just everything I've researched. There's so many different stories about what happened and what happened, and people have reached out to me personally who have known him, and said, no, this happened this time, and they were right there, like neighbors, so I don't know who to believe or what. So you just have to kind of take everything into account, and I don't know, think logically, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, again, about the persons on the scene, I mean, there was a helicopter involved in the one raid, so, there had to be aerial footage, correct? So maybe we want the helicopter footage as well to get the overview of what was going on.
I don't know about a helicopter raid. Do you mean for Newell?
Yeah, or was that the drug raid?
Oh no, that was the raid in '99. That was like,
okay.
No, yeah, there should have been a helicopter raid, but that was the one back in '99 where they did all those fishy, not to be funny, but the raids.
Good. Thanks for clarifying that, because I thought there was a helicopter involved in that.
No, that would have been bitchin', but no.
Also, just to answer the last question here, was that judge a federal judge? No. Newell was
No.
a circuit court judge. So it's,
And the only circuit court judge in
yes.
Caroline County and appointed by Hogan. And all of that stuff is fishy too. Look into that. I mean, people, I will say this. I don't know if he will ever see this, but hey, Charles Outland, please get a hold of me. I would love to talk to you. And he comes up in videos. I would love to talk to him. He's the real deal. I feel like he knows stuff, and he's right there on the Eastern Shore. So call me or email me. I mean,
Yeah.
do it. We should talk for real. I got your back. Anybody, anybody who's a local, I thank you so much for reaching out to me. I don't know what to do with it because I don't know. I'm not there. So I'm just taking everything in and trying to make the best decisions,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's a good point to bring up right now. The ways to get in contact with you. I mean, I do know you're on Telegram, right? And that's one way
Barely.
to find you.
I'm barely.
just go into your YouTube channel. I have the links posted up under our faces right now. So
Thanks, buddy. And also, the best way to contact me is Allie4Truth at protonmail.com. So that's, and that's how people do contact me. And it's pretty private. I mean, it's no wicker. Don't get me started on that, Hogan. That's next. But Proton Mail, Allie4Truth at protonmail.com. That's the best way.
all right, so we'll move into the fourth video now. I got to search it up while we're talking here because for some reason it didn't want to do it last time. Newell B. Roll is the next one. So we're going to move into that now, guys. We're going to mute our microphones, and as soon as I find it, maybe as soon as I find it.
You can do it, buddy.
I just had it right there. All right, here we go, guys.
When I made the first video about Judge Newell, I never imagined it would morph into this mini-series Survival, Lonesome Dove, or the Thornbirds, but here we are. All we need is Richard Chamberlain. You might be wondering at this point, why all these videos about this one little news story from over a month ago, and this one perverted judge nobody had ever even heard of before the story broke? Who even cares? That's a good question. Who does care? This little blurb about the judge is only one story of many that connects to the big story and to the big players. And this is why nobody's talking about it. Everything about this judge's crimes connects to their crimes and to the covering up of those crimes. One thing I care about personally is that one of Judge Newell's closest pals and one of Maryland's biggest players, Rod the Bod Rosenstein, has never been accountable for the myriad crimes he's committed over the course of his career, including his crimes against Dr. Jonathan McGreevy. Hey, Roro, remember when you said this about Newell, your decades-long buddy? He is a man of great wisdom, learning, and integrity. His conscience will be a guide to justice. Well, Jiminy Cricket, I guess it was. I've scoured the internet for any shred of evidence that anybody in Judge Newell's circle cared about what happened to him. I haven't been able to find solid proof the guy's even actually dead. There's been no follow-up, no statement from Hogan or his office, no autopsy report, no tribute to Newell, not even an obituary anywhere to be found. Such a prominent politician for so long in this little region of Maryland, whose wife was an award-winning local celebrity, remember? This judge was championed for his integrity and his forthrightness by such luminous dignitaries as Governor Lawrence Hogan, who appointed him. He was even honored as an outstanding graduate and notable of Washington College by the Caroline Review. Yet no remembrances of his life and service? No flag lowering, no tributes, no obituary, not one word from his father or brother. The silence was deafening. Speaking of Washington College, you'll remember that's the very exclusive private liberal arts school where the judge's father, the Unitarian Universalist Reverend Dr. J. David Newell, headed the Department of Philosophy for many years. Not just philosophy, religion too. When you understand the Unitarian Universalist beliefs on philosophy and religion, it should give you pause as to what a reverend of that organization was teaching his students, to include his own son. Check this out. Before his Facebook page was almost instantly obliterated, Judge Newell tried to relate to students who were missing out on things like proms and graduation during the pandemic. Newell said he missed out on those things too because he left high school after 10th grade. Then he went to college and was the first person in his family to go to law school and the family's first and only judge. See, he's making it sound like he dropped out after sophomore year and scratched and clawed his way up out of the ghetto to become his successful self. Here's what really happened. In Chester Harbor, where Newell grew up, students at that time had the option to attend public school in a neighboring county, which is what he did. After 10th grade, he completed his high school work where his father taught philosophy at Washington College, earning a bachelor's degree in philosophy. Grooming means more than one thing. We all deal with grief in different ways. Hogan was so depressed over his friend's gruesome demise that he immediately plunged headfirst into his busy day and started tackling his gubernatorial honey-do list. Mere hours after Newell's head was blown off on the morning of September 10th, Larry attended a reception where he happily accepted an award for Taekwondo Hero of the Month. His heroic act? Officially proclaiming April 5 as Taekwondo Day in the state of Maryland. See how that works? And then later that same day, he swore in 2 other Maryland judges to the Court of Appeals. That's the highest court in the state. They all look pretty broken up about Newell, huh? This is literally later that same day. Do you think they talked about that judge? Did they pour one out for their fallen homie? And how's this for optics? Mask on, mask off. Mask on. I don't believe taking your oath with a mask over your mouth should count. That's just me. They could be making faces at Hogan behind those things, like helmet to screw. It's gross to even look at, seriously. Mask on, mask off. It's a put on. It's a put on. In the course of putting together the real estate corner part of the series, that one's come in, and I'll give you a little preview at the end of this one. It's crazy what I've dug up. I realized there were a couple of loose ends to tie together on Newell and his connections to the Good Old Boys Club of Maryland. Don't let the name fool you. These are not your Dukes of Hazzard good old boys, okay? These are the elites of the old line state, to include the governor. Hogan's constant visits to the Eastern Shore, his involvement with the watermen of Hooper's Island, his real estate dealings, not to mention his stellar record for appointing thieves and child abusers to governmental positions of high authority. I call them Hogan's zeros, and that's a meme just waiting to happen. Let's talk about that. First, let's talk about Newell versus Ronells. In 2000, the Caroline County State's Attorney was this guy, Robert John Greenleaf. Remember him? This is the guy who was busted on count after count of soliciting sex from minors in 2 different counties, both from his home and from his government office. He ran for state's attorney again in 2002 and lost to Judge Newell, who held the position for the next 13 years. Susan Ronells, who was hired by Greenleaf as a victim witness coordinator and went on to become his campaign manager, brought a case along with 2 of her coworkers against Newell, who made good on his promise to fire them all once he got into office for supporting his rival. Ronells sued Judge Newell for wrongful termination. She got the ACLU involved. It dragged on for 7 years, and Newell walked away scot-free. 2 years later, in 2011, Greenleaf is caught in a sting and has charges brought against him by none other than Jonathan Newell. The judge brought his bail down from $250,000 to $25,000, which he breezily posted and was released. And then he gave him probation in place of jail time and did not require him to even register as a sex offender. Remember, the two of them were neighbors in tiny one-horse Henderson, Maryland. These are the mechanics of the Good Old Boys Club. All right, this caught my eye. Here we see Judge Newell appointed a John Darling to be the coordinator of Caroline County's problem-solving court. That was a new term for me. I had to look that up. Problem-solving courts are specialized dockets within the criminal justice system that seek to address the underlying problems contributing to certain criminal offenses. The most widely recognized court of this kind is the drug court, where Newell had a huge say in his county. But they have them for things too, like homelessness, mental health, human trafficking, etc. There are different schools of thought on the purpose and effectiveness of this kind of court. It seems to me this merger of these two courts, which took place in 2015 when Newell was still the state's attorney, loaned the judge more power to involve people of his own choosing from his own boys' club in certain case outcomes. Just my opinion. And when I read the name John Darling, I instantly thought of Wendy's brother in Peter Pan. You know, Peter Pan, the boy who wouldn't grow up. It is a syndrome. There are some John Darlings listed in Maryland. I just, for the life of me, couldn't find one to match up with this problem-solving court coordinator guy. All I could find was this guy. He's a director of something in Maryland who, again, just my opinion, looks eerily like Judge Newell with a bad rents. It might not be him, but so weird, right? Oh, and look at this. Talk about timing. Just a few hours after that unlucky punk was shot by that .44 Magnum, Caroline County EMS advertised that they're hiring. This was posted like 5 hours after they called time of death on Newell. Just how ghastly was that scene? Did they all just up and quit that day? The timing is interesting, to say the least. Local citizens started demanding State's Attorney Joe Riley begin looking into discrepancies in other cases Newell had decided. First one I'd take a look at is the heroin ring bust Newell prosecuted back in 2015. One of those sentenced in the sting was the grandson of former Maryland Governor Harry Hughes. Kid steals $250,000 off the old man to buy his smack, and Gramps still asks for a suspended sentence. He got 3 years. I'm not sure if he served it. One of the other 25 arrested in the heroin sting was Charles Outland, who pled guilty to conspiracy to possess heroin and received a flat 5-year sentence. He had this to say upon the judge's death, which I found quite fascinating. I'm not opposed to share this information, but allegedly there are some local officials that had prior knowledge of what the judge was doing, and they did nothing. And they all are under investigation. That's why everybody is jumping ship except your boy here. Another judge gone, a commissioner that can't be found, supposed to be in Montana, but he ain't there, and we're getting a new sheriff. You people are so quick to judge the little man. The crooks do what they want right under your nose. I know this one's going to get me blocked, but pass the word. Y'all didn't believe me last time. You better believe me this time. Why was the judge so involved in the narcotics and drug task force business? Opioids are a huge business on the Eastern Shore. Watch the water. There's a canal that connects the Delaware River with the Chesapeake Bay and the Port of Baltimore. Trafficking is nothing new there. Drugs, guns, humans. It's shockingly common. Could it be possible that the insurance policy Judge Newell lost his life over contained more than just proof of sexual compromise? Could there have been drug deals, gun running, secret land deals? Apparently there's a lot of money in real estate. Who knew? Larry knows this too, very well. His private real estate business is how he's reportedly worth over $300 million on a governor's $180K a year salary. Really makes you wonder the level of Hogan's involvement in some shady property transactions in Eastern Maryland. When on his official website, it says this: if you are an investor, Hogan can ensure it will provide you with under-the-radar, opportunistic, and attractive investment opportunities that yield impressive results. Under the radar means without attracting attention, and to be opportunistic is to exploit chances offered by immediate circumstances without reference to a general plan or a moral principle. Hogan comes right out and tells you exactly what they do for their investors. They can secretly take advantage of certain real estate buying and selling opportunities when they arise, without a plan, without morals, and without principles. These are their own words, and words have meaning. In 2018, somebody or buddies stuck stickers with the word corrupt in big red letters on signs promoting Hogan-endorsed Newell. Who would have done such a thing? One of his victims? One of the state employees he fired? His wife? He posted on Facebook that one of those signs was right across from the public school where his kids and their friends attended. Could have been one of them. Somebody knew he was corrupt and was mad enough to tag him. Newell was quoted as saying many of his signs had been stolen or vandalized over the course of the campaign. This is George Jackson. He was so upset, he went on the news and proclaimed that the people who committed this horrible act against Newell were the truly corrupt ones. The two of them had been friends for 20 years, and Newell had a hand in George's fight to have the Dover Bridge rebuilt. Here's George with Hogan cutting the ribbon. So, of course, he's going to stand by his buddy Newell, or at least sit by his sign so nobody else slaps some truth on it. This guy didn't know about Newell after 2 decades of friendship? Give me a break. In the words of then Superintendent of Maryland's Natural Resources Police, John Rhodes, in a report about the 1999 Fishing Creek raid, it's a small community and word spreads quickly. It's generally an area made up of generations of people who've made their living off fish and game. This is the raid I covered in a previous video where 65 federal agents descended at dawn on Hooper's Island and arrested a bunch of shoremen at this gun club after a 4-year undercover investigation for violently breaking tons of state game laws. In that article, it states that Golden Hill had abandoned its guiding operation and became a hunt club with annual memberships costing up to several $1,000s. Why the switch? Maybe they thought they could control who came in and get away with more, said Lieutenant Michael Sewell, rhymes with Newell, who directed the undercover operation. Golden Hill Gun Club, you say? In the 5th and, I swear, final installment of this series, we're going to be talking about Golden Hill Gun Club and about Hooper's Island Gun Club, which was owned for 4 generations by the Dollar family. Automotive pioneer Walter P. Chrysler hunted there back in the 1930s, and as of 2018, it's been open to the public for the first time as Riverside Lodge. It's an all-inclusive resort on those 1,000 deeded acres. There are some insane things connected to these 2 hunting lodges, and also Blackwater Hunt Club. Some common owners, some you'll recognize, members of clubs and representatives. So the real estate section will be more than a corner. It's actually going to be kind of a map of connections between Judge Newell and other political figures I've mentioned throughout. Sullivan, Biden, some of Hogan's zeros, and the big zero himself, Hogan. Don't forget to visit McGreevyforSenate.org or johnheretohelp.info if you'd like to donate to John's Senate campaign. It's all about to officially kick off. So if you want to help with merchandising, fundraising, just anything at all, please feel free to email me at Allie4Truth@protonmail.com. See you soon.
Microphones. And we're back. Yes. Okay. We lost Lyndon in the mix there. He had to do something. So I want to thank Lyndon so much. I think you're muted, Allie, but
I'm good. Can you hear
okay.
me?
I
Yeah.
want to thank Lyndon so much for his expertise on this subject matter, because I would have never known about computer aided dispatch, whether it's called that in Maryland. I mean, it's worth a shot to find out and do some digging on that to get that information. But so many brilliant points that he brought up that are going to be useful for us to unravel the truth of this entire matter. Thanks, Lyndon.
For sure. So I don't know, we lost him. Good Vibes said that they want to hear about Hogan's shady land deal with Steve Bisciotti.
Bishotti.
And that Bisciotti,
That's
oh, Bisciotti, I'm so, lo siento mucho, Bisciotti.
Oh, shit.
I am hearing lots and lots of weird feedback, but
I don't know why that is. Are you watching the show on like a device behind you while you're on?
No,
Oh,
I don't know what's happening. And Brian left. It's okay though. It's all good. So we gonna do this last one. Or I completely agree with you about Lyndon. He knows so much about so many things, and he's brilliant. He's taught me so much.
Yeah, me for the short time that I've known him. I mean, he has taught me so much as well. He's truly a brilliant investigator. Has
Truly.
the law enforcement mind on both sides to see how to investigate it, and from a law enforcement perspective, and how to investigate it using that knowledge from the other side to get the truth out. So
Yes.
I mean,
Yep. That's it. That's it.
And he's the original OG, by the way. If anyone didn't know that, with John Here to Help, Dr. John McGreevy, Lyndon was the first one out there retweeting him on Twitter and noticing the things that he was posting.
I will agree with that, but I see that and I raise you Liberty D Mills, and Lyndon would be the first one to agree with that, because she was literally the first one. And this is when John wasn't even John Help. He was like Anon A7 or whatever. But Lyndon was there like right then. You're right. He was one of the original OGs for real. So he's been here all along, and he knows what he's talking about. So
Absolutely.
yeah, we're blessed to have him on our side.
For sure. For sure. I didn't see any other questions in the chat right now. So I think we should just move right on to part 5. Unless anyone else had some questions you want to throw in there, we could address that at the end of Act 5.
And this is like sort of a culmination of all of it. It might be a little bit of repeating, but it's like where I was with the last one was, look, here's the synopsis of all of it. And it kind of puts everything together. So hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yay.
Hold on.
Yay.
Good Vibes had a question. From Austin, is Lyndon from Austin? So he has experience dealing with a shady local government. Well,
he just answered it.
Yeah, I saw it.
He answered it in in 2 words, but there's so many more. We'll get to that for sure. Lyndon is so humble, but he is. Don't even get me started.
Yeah, and I hope to have Lyndon on the show as well, to just the two of us go over law enforcement aspects and what he does, So we'll get into that at a later time, but we'll move on to part 5 now. Again, thank you all for watching tonight.
You guys, I'm so sorry this has taken me forever. Phew, it's been super busy here. What with the being hacked and attacked, betrayed, threatened, breached. Between that and the holidays, it's just been nuts. But we're finally here. Never give up. This whole dig on Judge Newell has connected some very interesting people in and around the great state of Maryland. And since I posted part 4 of this series, there's been a whole slew of new scandals surrounding Bozo Governor Hogan, more thieves, and more pervs. You sure can't pick 'em. Throughout the course of investigating this case, I'm always led back to one very important question. One whose answer we should all stand up and demand, because the answer, the real answer, aka the truth, could literally change the course of the impending political future. We're going to start this last chapter of the Newell Chronicles right where we kicked it all off, in Fishing Creek on Hooper's Island in Dorchester County, Maryland. Quick recap. So, Circuit Court Judge and Larry Hogan appointee and longtime personal friend, Jonathan Newell, had invited 2 minor boys for a sleepover at his secluded cabin in tiny Fishing Creek this past July. One of the boys found a camera in the bathroom when he went to shower the next morning. Law enforcement raided the cabin, and Newell swallowed the SD card from the shower camera, but a subsequent search turned up mountains of evidence of child exploitation and worse, dating back to 2014. After the Fishing Creek cabin bust, Newell inexplicably enjoyed several weeks of paid leave in the comfort of his own home in Henderson. The FBI surrounded that home at a time neighbors, officials, and reporters can't agree on, sometime early in the morning of September 10th. This is one day after the criminal complaint of him sexually exploiting children was made public. The feds do a no-knock raid, and the judge either shoots himself in the head or is dealt with by the FBI. Why? What was he hiding? Where either way, death was the only out. More importantly, who was he protecting? My theory is that the judge was holding what is known as an insurance policy. You know, like Anthony Weiner's laptop, or like Hunter Biden's laptop from hell. Double indemnity. It's my belief the judge was both compromised himself and covering for others in his sick little circle. He was very well connected for many years. He spoke of the 10 other members of this club who came and went at will to this cabin, and nobody knows who a single one of them is. Why not? The night before the cabin was raided, there were more than 2 boys in that cabin, and the judge had an unnamed friend join them for their little sleepover. 4 more boys and another adult male were there that night. So 6 minor children and 2 adult males, to include the judge. And here is that very important question I referenced. Who was that other adult male? How was this mystery man able to just evaporate into thin air, and why is nobody demanding he be exposed? How high up the chain would this degenerate have to be to make a scandal that big disappear in order to protect his identity? Here's another big question. Who would have had the authority to order law enforcement to stand down or to torch all evidence? Which official has that pull? I have a theory, but first I'll share a few interesting and downright kooky things I have found on Fishing Creek. Being an unincorporated town, Fishing Creek is ungoverned and very private. It's just over 1 mile of land, and all of Hooper's Island is less than 12 square miles in area total, and only about 500 people live there. Mostly watermen whose families have been there for generations. The tiny community is the hometown of a man named Louis Rufus Fraze, who was a contestant on a reality show called Pirate Master back in 2007. I'd never heard of it, but evidently Fraze was 13th cut adrift, me hearty, and banked around 17 grand. Here's Louis. He still lives in Fishing Creek, far as I can tell, and he still works at the same marina. Another famous face around the Hoopers Island hood is an author named Mindy Burgoyne. She calls herself the travel hag and writes about haunted places along the eastern shore. Even Wikipedia says local legend posits a number of ghosts in the Fishing Creek area. Here's Mindy posing with Mary, who worked for years at Hoopers Island's only restaurant, Old Salty's. One of the hag's stories featured Mary and her invisible friend they've dubbed Mary's Ghost. The annual White Marlin Open in Ocean City is the world's largest and richest billfish tournament. It's a deep-sea fishing competition that's awarded more than $86 million in prizes since its start 48 years ago. In 2017, the crew of a boat called the Wire Nut miraculously hauled in a 95.5-pound marlin at the 11th hour. According to BaltimoreMagazine.com, a successful Annapolis-based tax attorney named Glenn Frost was the one who hauled her in. He claims it only took him 20, maybe 25 minutes to reel in this nearly 100-pound prize-winning beast in the final afternoon hours of the official end of the 5-day tournament. But wait, there's more. Frost was a lawyer involved in the litigation surrounding the contested results from the year before. Because this tournament offers such huge cash prizes, there is sometimes cheating involved, go figure. For this reason, the tourney has in place a rule that each winning crew member must pass a lie detector test before collecting their fat stacks. So Mr. Frost was taking down the previous year's contested winner in court while simultaneously taking down that 95-pound marlin and reeling in at last call that $1,654,800 first prize. Something's fishy. And fishier still, Glenn Frost did not pass his initial polygraph test. They investigated him for 2 whole months before they finally forked over the dough. Interesting. Glenn is an award-winning national and international attorney specializing in matters of tax planning and controversy, business law, and estate planning. He is also, as of last year, the president of American Citizens Abroad Global Foundation. The ACA has, as seen in green, created positive, ongoing relationships with key legislative and administrative offices and has been invited to provide input and guidance on issues. So, global influencers, then. And Glenn is el presidente. Muy interesante. Remember Joe Riley, the Caroline County State's attorney who took over for Newell after Hogan appointed him judge? Glenn Frost has a connection to Joe Riley. His wife is Joe's assistant state's attorney. Not sure if they're still married, but what a small world. That's like only 2 degrees separation. But wait, there's even more. One of Glenn's past addresses is this secluded little number in Church Creek, also in Dorchester County. This place Mr. Frost owns, or owned, or rented is the Golden Hill Gun Club. It's a long-established hunting club on almost 1,100 deeded acres. Here, the listing agent, who is an owner and the only one who shows the property and the only one who prepares the contracts, offers 1/22nd interest in the club. And here it says the club is located not in Fishing Creek, but in Annapolis, and that Glenn E. Frost is, or was, the president of the club. Here it says Golden Hill Gun Club has 1 principal on record, Tom, and 1 principal address in Parkton. Pretty nice digs. And here, the principal is Richard, and the address leads us to this house in Baldwin. I'm not really sure whether things just changed hands over the years, like a lot, or if there are just a mess of different LLCs for the same gun club, this company. What in the world? Nothing adds up. Blackwater Hunting Club is headquartered at this house in Baltimore with a contact named John. Here's his very public contact information. And can somebody please explain how a hunting club can be categorized under private swimming pools? Does this house look like it has a pool? First thing I thought of was how the criminal complaint stated that Judge Newell had locked away in a safe a folder called Edited Swim. And it had 15 subfolders. Ugh. This Blackwater Hunting LLC changed to an LLCBL 6 months ago. Its address is in, I can only hope it's pronounced Crapo, and the agents are lawyers, and the officers are 20 entities other than corporations. Blackwater Hunt Club, Inc. is a gun trust depot in Silver Spring, and Blackwater Sportsman's Club, shown here, is characterized as a bar and is either unsafe to access via their website or permanently closed. There are more than 20 hunting and fishing clubs in a very concentrated area in Dorchester County. I'm sure most of them are legit, but there's a whole little secret network, it would seem, betwixt a couple of them, and some super shady real estate deals have been taking place all throughout this year. I'll show you. All of this about these weird hunting clubs and gun clubs is just one piece of the real estate corner puzzle, and it lays the groundwork to connect some dots that connect some people, one person in particular, to some even weirder stuff. Like this, for example. This is a list of homes and properties that have sold in Fishing Creek and the surrounding area within the last year. Remember, this is a tiny community inhabited by folks whose families have been there for generations. And this is around a cool $6 million in real estate sales, mostly on the same road. There are currently 11 more homes in land for sale in Fishing Creek, and 4 of those are also on Hooper's Island Road. What the heck is going on there? It seems the entire town is being sold off. Who's buying it, and where are these sellers going? Oh yeah, and Judge Newell's property sold too. His house in Henderson, where he met his horrible end, appears intact still. But I did find these 3 properties that belonged to him, which sold. One he ditched in the month between the raid on his cabin and the raid on his house. This is a bit hard to see, I apologize. But these are home and property sales in the Fishing Creek area from September, 3 months ago. In green, I've highlighted a company called RB&JH Properties, who in one day purchased 23 properties for $345,000 each. It's all different acreage, and it's all at that same price on the same day. And you'll notice they're the only buyers who don't disclose the addresses of the purchased properties. That's almost $8 million. Who are RB and JH, and what connection to what real estate dealings must they have to drop $8 million in one day under the radar like that? Again, I say, what the heck is going on over there? Here's a non sequitur. A sequitur. Governor Hogan has been woven throughout this entire Newell narrative, not just because the two of them were amigos, but because Larry spent a lot of time in the judge's neck of the woods. From the day he was elected, he promised to take extra special care of the folks on the Eastern Shore. I could pour through scads of pictures of the governor spending that extra special time along the shoreline, but let's start with this one. Here he is taking care of the people of Cambridge with the vaccine. This is Hogan's little buddy, Andrew Bradshaw. He's the mayor of Cambridge, the youngest one ever at 32. Yep, he's 32. This look was torn straight from the pages of the 1975 Sears Spring Catalog, Men's Leisure Wear Department. At least he took his job seriously and had the maturity to successfully lead a city. Here, the skipper and his Gilligan break ground at the new Boys and Girls Club in Cambridge. These two are thick as thieves, despite their alleged age difference. Bradshaw interned at Hogan's legislative office, and Hogan also nominated him to serve on the Critical Area Commission for the Chesapeake and Atlantic coastal bays. Bradshaw's been made out by Larry to be some kind of boy wonder. Boy, I wonder where the governor's statement is about this. Last month, Bradshaw was criminally charged with 50 counts of distribution of revenge porn. He created multiple accounts on Reddit and posted various subreddits related to humiliation, degradation, and blatant racism. That is the most offensive part. It's all disgusting, but I read it and there's just so much hate. Revenge is one thing, but the racist comments were sickening. And this is a guy who Larry promotes, praises, and pals around with. Just as he did Roy McGrath, his former chief of staff and top advisor. Here Larry says he's always known Roy to be someone of the highest character. Whoopsies. McGrath was also charged last month for federal wire fraud, theft, and misuse of government funds. This dude was on the board of Public Works, too, and reviewed hundreds of millions of dollars in environmental projects statewide. Larry's response to the theft was that it was kind of outrageous and kind of disgraceful. Yeah, and you kind of look like a potato. It's no surprise Larry would champion proven perverts and racists and thieves. Here are this Hogan's heroes. About the death of war criminal Bush Sr., he said, "It is with incredible sadness that we learn of the passing of President George H.W. Bush, a true patriot and statesman who embodied the decency, Willie Horton, and selfless service of America's greatest generation."
The world can therefore seize this opportunity to fulfill the long-held promise of a new world order.
H.W.'s lifetime of service and decades of dedication to honor and duty, Iran-Contra, leave an indelible mark on our nation and on our hearts. He will always represent the very best America has to offer in public life: toughness with civility, firmness with kindness, and strength of conviction with force of character. H.W.'s son, low-energy Jeb, is hailed by Larry as being a great governor and somebody he greatly respects. John McCain is someone Larry has always admired because he was a guy who always put his country above himself or his party.
It's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death. It's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death.
He's quoted as saying that removing Liz Cheney from her role in the House was a big mistake, calling her a solid conservative Republican. Hogan also counts pervert traitor Mike Pence as one of his best buds. Here's an example the governor set for the good people of Maryland of how to treat the voting process. In 2016, he voted for his 88-year-old father, and in 2020, he voted for Ronald Reagan. Here he is flapping his gums about how his vote was symbolic, and it didn't really make a difference if he threw it away on a goof by trying to make some sort of statement or something. Pretty stupid statement. You, the governor, you're telling people that your vote doesn't matter, so why should theirs? Also, voting for your dad, who is old as the Dickens and totally ineligible, and voting for Reagan, who died in 2004, you don't vote for the dead guy, Larry. The dead guy votes for you. Get it straight. Now let's take a peek into some of these agencies Larry created out of thin air, starting with the ironically named State Transparency and Accountability Commission, of which he said, "Since taking office, our administration has pushed to restore integrity and accountability to our state government and to ensure that the best interests of Maryland's citizens are being represented fairly and honestly. We need to take a long, hard look at the way that our quasi-governmental agencies operate and focus on making real and systemic reforms." Look harder and longer, Larry. Quasi means seemingly, sort of, almost, but not really. It conveniently blurs the line between what's owned by the government but operated in the private sector. And as captain, you get to pick anyone you want. So where does this Transparency and Accountability Commission weigh in on how many conflicts of interest arise when, while governor, you set up a trust agreement run by your family and friends? With an ethics commission who keeps all your holdings confidential. That's actually the opposite of transparent and accountable. It's using your official position to enrich yourself and your posse through made-up committees and shady real estate deals. How many real estate LLCs do you have ownership in, Lair? Here's another executive order he pulled out of his hat. The Office of Education and Accountability. Millions spent unnecessarily to distract from his horrible underfunding of Maryland's school systems and to distract from all the high-profile scandals involving them. None of the higher-ups on Maryland's Board of Education wanted any part of this phony office. In fact, MESA President Cheryl Bost said of the order, quote, "The governor's office already has agencies available to look into claims of fraud. This is a diversion of resources and campaign rhetoric," end quote. And that's how Hogan rolls. Okay, $25 million for vacant retail property, $400 million for universal broadband, and 11 nonprofit organizations on the Lower Eastern Shore in October received a bunch of laptops and hotspots. $3.4 million for aquaculture. Guess where? $13.5 million in waterway improvement grants, $10 million in grants to Little Cambridge, $3 million to protect against hate crimes. Oh, you mean like the ones your little racist buddy posted on Reddit? Hogan's administration has spent more than $8 million in 2 years to protect vulnerable groups from hate crimes. How would one even go about choosing the more than 30 Maryland organizations and religious institutions to provide the funding to? Who gets to pick? And how is this funding to be used? It says here on equipment, personnel, and physical security enhancements. Like, for an extra $2 million in funding, Hogan even got Maryland State Police to work as a liaison between law enforcement and the Asian American community. Hogan says it was his stepdaughter, Jamie, who drew attention to this issue. Kind of seems like maybe he's showing some favoritism by specifically funding one group. Hogan spends lots of time with Jamie. She and her family often accompany him when he uses the state-owned, taxpayer-funded luxury boxes at Camden Yards, FedEx Field, and M&T Bank Stadium. Records show Hogan also allows his real estate business, the Hogan Companies, to bring guests to events. The governor has personally hosted, many times, the president of the Hogan Companies, who just happens to be his brother, Tim. Numerous HOCO executives and employees have been given prime access to these luxury boxes, and in doing so, were able to gain prime private access to important state decision makers. Not to mention the thousands of dollars spent on food and liquor ordered, also on the taxpayer's dime. $16.8 million in grants to support bicycle and pedestrian improvement, 42 projects across the state. How many of those projects are on the Eastern Shore, and what interest might your real estate company hold? Here's a gem you tweeted out to our rightful president. If you had done your job, America's governors wouldn't have been forced to fend for themselves to find tests in the middle of a pandemic, as we successfully did in Maryland. Stop golfing and concede. Successfully? You had already been governor 5 years. Why didn't you have what you needed for your state already in place? Is that why you went crying to your beard wife and had her help you negotiate a secret deal through her South Korean connections? 13 time zones away, only to have defective masks flown into Maryland? Talk about a PR stunt. Your administration paid $9.5 million for this media scam, and the tests were flawed and never even used. Then on the down low, you sneak another $2.5 million to the same Korean company for $500,000 replacement tests. According to findings of an April 2021 state audit, the purchase was based on a flawed agreement, whatever that means, and those masks were also never used. We haven't forgotten that little self-aggrandizing exploit you named Operation Enduring Friendship. Psst. It's $13 million wasted, Larry, on unused tests. Where's that money? You paid almost 40% more than FEMA did for South Korean tests that month. Why? Even the Washington Post, who usually loves you, loved you enough to cover up the University of Maryland scandal last election eve. Even they reported that the tests you wasted millions of tax dollars on were available for 20 to 30% less right here in the USA. Sounds to me like you used your wife to pull off this stunt to try to come off as Hogan, the anti-Trump hero. Just the fact that you so disrespectfully order our president to concede the election everyone knows he won, including you, get out of here. Hogan has carved out this fake little niche for himself as this popular centrist governor with these groundbreaking new ideas. Same old shtick. His gimmick is to mollify the left with his hatred of President Trump, his going along with their Green New Deal psyop, and creating profligate departments and grants out of nowhere in order to benefit himself and his homies financially and or to hide some of their many crimes. Yo, Mr. Transparency and Accountability, why are there so many reports of your crooked dealings? You canceled the Red Line, a $2.9 billion planned and badly needed metro rail line through Baltimore, and diverted those funds to building roads which just coincidentally happened to serve the suburban property developments owned by the Hogan companies. And let's not forget Larry offered 12 to 17-year-olds a shot at a full-ride scholarship to an in-state institution if they took the jab. I pray for these children. More than $12 million in federal highway safety grants. Hogan says the funds will be used for things like using all available seat belts in the vehicle and preventing impaired, aggressive, and distracted driving. How? How do you spend $12 million on something you cannot possibly legislate? Where is that money really going? These safety grants include supporting police training. Interesting that 1 month later, you called for a $150 million investment into state and local police, calling it the Refund the Police initiative. Do you know what a refund is, Larry? It's a repayment, usually to a customer who is not satisfied with the goods and services rendered. When were the police ever defunded in Maryland? You already increased funding for police last year by $137 million. So what are you refunding and why? What is that money actually going for? It's amazing to me that this whole series started with a tip I got about a judge I'd never heard of from a very rural part of Maryland I didn't even know existed. The further I dug into this Newell case, the more curious it got. And some dots got connected to some major affery. It turns out Governor Hogan has not only been featured throughout this entire Newell narrative, he's become its subject, in essence. It's been very surprising. We've met some really interesting characters along the way who all seem to be connected in one way or another to politicians and ultimately to Hogan. Case in point, remember George Jackson? George was good friends with Judge Newell for more than 20 years. Here he is with the comptroller receiving an award for helping people. He was also the local Santa for 40 years. He had a tradition of sending these Christmas scrolls to the troops in Afghanistan. Here's George handing Congressman Andy Harris a letter to the troops. And who do we have here, putting his Herbie Hancock on one of George's Christmas scrolls? It's Joe Biden, the original copy. Wonder if today's Joe would sign a Christmas scroll for the troops in Afghanistan. Oops, never mind. For the record, my purpose here is just to find and report the truth as I see it. I'm not accusing anyone of anything except bad fashion. Anything I report can be easily fact-checked, and I'm careful to ask questions rather than make accusations. You guys know me by now, my humor, and how I voice my opinions, which is what this is. I dig, find stuff, report on it, and give my opinion. And then I try to bring it forward so you guys can dig on it too and ask questions. Because we the people deserve answers from somebody who plans on throwing his hat in the ring for a 2024 presidential run. As the accountable and oh so transparent governor, Larry could easily get to the bottom of who that other adult male was with those 6 minor boys at Judge Newell's little sleepaway camp. Instead, he made sure the case was closed. Again, no accusations, just an observational question. Why was Hogan a prolific tweeter, tweet free over the course of the weekend of the cabin raid. Weird, right? Wonder where he was off to. Maybe he scooted over to the Rehoboth Beach, Lewis, Delaware shoreline for some R&R. It has a long-running reputation as a popular getaway for D.C. politicos. That's probably why middle-class Joe bought a vacation home there for $3 million and spent another $500,000 building a hypocritical fence around it. The area has about 1,500 full-time residents. A local real estate agent said people go there to relax and not be noticed. They keep a low profile, put their baseball cap and sunglasses on, and you don't know who you're even sitting next to. This area has come to be known as the nation's summer capital because it has attracted senators, cabinet secretaries, and other politicians from Washington, D.C. Like Emmett Sullivan, who bought this house in Lewis. One of the prizes Judge Newell's wife won for her poetry stylings was this one, the Dogfish Head Poetry Prize. Dogfish Head is an inn and a craft brewery in Lewis, Delaware. So many interesting connections. And so much corruption. It seems hopeless at times, I know, but there is always hope. It is my prayer that more people stand up and hold these politicians accountable for their actions and to demand true transparency. We definitely need to fix the nightmare that was the 2020 election, for sure. But we still need to move forward and concentrate on 2022. It's a unit party at this point, as Hogan has clearly demonstrated, but we need to get the right people in when we vote in November. We need a majority, or I can't even imagine what will unfold. The right person to represent Maryland in the United States Senate is, of course, your friend and mine, Dr. John McGreevy. All of you who are familiar with John's story understand that he's the only one who can actually fix this mess, and you understand why. If you don't, head on over to johnheretohelp.info, where you'll find some good information, and he's also on Telegram now. I'll be spending the next little while working on John's campaign with some stellar folks, including this guy. I'm sure you recognize Andy from his interviews with John on his Andy Says Maryland podcast. Andy will be on the ballot, too. All I want to hear is there's a new sheriff in town. More on that to come, and I'll be sure to keep you updated from time to time on the campaign goings-on. Win big, vote pig. I want to thank all of you for an incredible year. It's been a hella trip. You've been so awesome and so supportive all year, and your comments mean so much to me. All of them. The death threats, marriage proposals, all of it. Thank you. God bless you, and I will see you in 2022.
The mute button and that mute button, and here we are again. Wonderful wrap up there, Allie. You have done amazing investigative work, and as you mentioned before, you're not even here. You just care. You got on the bead, and you totally got your shovel out and dug into it, and that is such an inspiration, and that's what everyone needs to do. Thank you so much for creating this series of videos, and all the videos that you've done. Please go to Allie's YouTube channel, which the link is posted under her picture there. But amazing. And thanks for being here tonight, because, I mean, this is all of it in one spot.
Well, thank you, Andy. And again, I appreciate you so much for just paying attention to the story. You're there in Maryland, and you're right, I'm not there. But my motivation is always truth. It's always truth, and it's always saving the children. And that's something that you and I have in common with Dr. McGreevy.
Yes.
And our goal is to champion him and to get him in so that he can do what he got to do in your state, because it's deeper stronger, further than that. It's about we the people. It's about exposing darkness to light. That's what it is. And there's a whole lot of darkness in your beautiful state. Mine too. But the reason I care is because I care about the truth. And he brings that. He brings truth like fire. He burns it all down. So I want to thank you for giving me a voice here.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank you for everything you've done. I say it a lot. I'm super proud of you. We've been waiting for somebody to come and pick up the pieces and move it forward. And that's you. And so the goal here is to get other people to, pick up the mantle and carry it forward too, in their own way.
Well, thank you very much. They're very kind words. I mean, we're all in this together, right? So
Amen.
where we go one, we go all. So,
we go all. Amen.
So the more we get together and the more we brainstorm, we have our think tanks and we have our calls to action and get people on board with this. Just by sharing this message tonight could be eye-opening for someone, and that's exactly what we're trying to do, is wake people up, because we need your help. We can't do this alone. John can't do this alone. No one can. It takes us all.
It does. And now is the time. Now, because we can be fighting, we can say, oh, what happened? And then it'll be too late. Now is the time. It's a very small window, and that's not a scary thing. It's just the truth of the matter is that there's boots on faces right now. Now is the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't comment before when Lyndon was talking. I mean, Tori's people are doing amazing things. I'm just speck in
Isn't it
Tori's
astounding?
group.
Yeah, it's astounding. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm just a speck within that group. And Tori has inspired me to do so much. Obviously, that's why my name is Andy Says. She's just showed me that doing a podcast isn't that hard. And, I haven't been super consistent with it. I've been stretched very thin, but I think it's been effective, and I think it will be more effective. And speaking about the consistency of it, Tuesday's show is going to be huge, totally huge. And this is all intertwined, exactly what we demonstrated here tonight with the series that Allie's put together. This is a widespread issue, and it involves the same things that you mentioned in your video: guns, drugs, and kids, and it's heartbreaking.
The same things and the same people, and these people are in control, air quotes. Well, you know what I mean? Like, this is what we have to do. This is why we have to say enough is enough and get rid of who's there, the old guard, and get new people in here, and people who really care, like new sheriffs, for example, and new senators, for example. Oink, oink. You know what I'm saying? Like, people, like, it's time for some changes, and that's all. There's time for some changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we'll leave it there. Yeah. And Good Vibe said doing some patriotic shit. Absolutely.
Doing patriotic shit. Love it.
Get in the car, loser. We're doing patriot shit.
Get in the car. I love it. Yeah.
But thank you so much. And thank you to Lyndon for the pop-up appearance tonight to speak on that, because, I mean, your sound legal mind was so helpful through so many aspects of this. He's helped you, he's helped me, he's helping John,
definitely. He brings a different perspective, the law thing, and it's brilliant. And thank you to Brian too, and thank you the chat people who are here and for your patience. We're figuring it out. That's what's beautiful about this. We the people, we're figuring it out. We're stumbling through. Yeah. And we're telling the truth. And sometimes the truth ain't pretty. And we just demonstrated that. But truth is truth. So here we are.
Big thanks to Brian. Maybe one day he'll come on a podcast.
I hope so. That'd be good. He's not really that guy.
Like,
He's kind of we'll see.
But yeah,
All
thanks
right.
everybody for coming tonight. We'll close
Thanks,
out
guys.
with a song and talk to y'all soon. Join the show Tuesday right here at the same spot. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Falling too fast to prepare for this. Tripping in the world could be dangerous. Everybody's circling as vultures. Negative, nepotist. Everybody's waiting for the fallen man. Everybody's praying for the end of times. Everybody hoping they could be the one. I was born to run, I was born for this. Whip, whip, run me like a racehorse. Pull me like a ripcord. Break me down and build me up. I wanna be the slip, slip. Word upon your lip, lip. Letter that you rip, rip. Break me down and build me up. Whatever it takes. 'Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do whatever it takes. 'Cause I love how it feels when I break the chains. Whatever it takes. Yeah, take me to the top. I'm ready for whatever it takes. 'Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do what it takes. Always had to feel being typical. Looking at my body feeling miserable. Always hanging on to the visual. I wanna be invisible. Looking at my ears like a martyrdom. Everybody needs to be a part of them. Never be enough, I'm the prodigal son. I was born to run, I was born for this. Whip, whip, pull me like a racehorse. Pull me like a ripcord. Break me down and build me up. I wanna be the slip, slip. Word upon your lip, lip. Letter that you rip, rip. Break me down and build me up. Whatever it takes. 'Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do whatever it takes. 'Cause I love how it feels when I break the chains. Whatever it takes. Yeah, take me to the top. I'm ready for whatever it takes. 'Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do what it takes. Hypocritical, egotistical. Don't wanna be the parenthetical, hypothetical. Working hard on something that I'm proud of. Out of the box, an epoxy to the world and the vision we've lost. I'm an apostrophe.